For the record, my name is Henry Santana, at-large City Councilor, and I am the Chair of the Boston City Council Committee on Education. Today is August 12, 2025. This hearing is being recorded. It is also being live-streamed at boston.gov/city-council-tv and broadcasted on Xfinity Channel 8, RCN Channel 82, Fios Channel 964. Written comments may be sent to the committee email at ccc.education@boston.gov and will be made part of the record and available to all councilors. Public testimony will be taken at the end of this hearing. Individuals will be called on in the order in which they signed up and will have 2 minutes to testify. If you are interested in testifying in person, please add your name to the sign-up sheet near the entrance of the chamber. If you are looking to testify virtually, please email our Central Staff Liaison, Michelle Goldberg, at michelle.a.goldberg@boston.gov for the link, and your name will be added to the list. Today's hearing is on docket number 0905, a hearing to discuss the impacts of social media on Boston Public School students. This matter was sponsored by Councilors Ben Weber, Enrique Pepin, and Sharon Durkin, and was referred to the committee on April 16, 2025. Today, I am joined by my colleagues in order of arrival: Councilor Ed Flynn, Councilor Erin Murphy, Councilor Sharon Durkin, Councilor Enrique Pepin, Councilor John Fitzgerald, and Councilor Ben Weber. Oh, actually, no. So, yeah. So we're going to start now with, I'm going to turn it over to opening statements, brief opening statements. We have multiple panels and a lot of public testimony, so if my colleagues can just be respectful of trying to keep that brief, and we'll go through everyone. Starting with the lead sponsor, Councilor Weber, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Chair. Just a little bit of setting the scene here. This started for me with a tour of English High School I took with Superintendent Skipper and Principal Murphy. As a parent of 2 teenage kids, I have seen firsthand how difficult it can be to reach kids while they are immersed in their phones. I've also seen how kids can be impacted by spending all of their time and energy either texting with friends or scrolling through videos. And what we saw at English High School was a school-wide cell phone ban and how that impacted the kids and actually seeing kids interact in the hallways. The evidence demonstrates that students are negatively impacted by phones and social media in school. High levels of phone and social media usage in adolescence are linked to increased anxiety, especially when usage exceeds 2 hours a day. This pattern is consistently observed across multiple countries with correlations to poorer sleep, less physical activity, and lower academic performance. Meanwhile, studies have shown that removing cell phones from schools improves their performance, improves students' performance as well as their mental well-being. For those reasons, on July 31st, 2025, the Massachusetts Senate passed Senate Bill 2561, drafted by Senator Jason Lewis. The bill, called an Act to Promote Student Learning and Mental Health, would, if passed, require all public school districts to adopt cell phone-free school policies by the fall of 2026. Reasonable exceptions to the rule will be made for students who need their personal devices for treating medical conditions, such as diabetic children who use their phones to monitor their glucose levels, off-campus travel requirements, individualized education plans, or to accommodate a disability. If the device is being used for legit educational purposes, it is also permissible. In the literature, and from students at a mock hearing we held in this chamber, some critics of these policies insist that kids need to have their cell phones to be safe. The research, however, shows that having a phone in an emergency can actually make students less safe because they may miss vital instructions and may rely on misinformation they receive from their phones. Moreover, pursuant to the Senate bill, districts must ensure that students and caregivers have at least one method of communication during school hours and that students and families can communicate during emergency situations. If the bill becomes law, districts like Boston will have to develop rules to implement a bell-to-bell cell phone ban in our schools. Schools like English High have already shown us the way on how to effectively do that and the benefits of removing schools and social media from our classrooms. But a set of rules can only be as effective as the buy-in we get from students, parents, and the community. I'm looking forward to learning more about this issue from our panelists and look forward to hearing from our students about how cell phones impact them and how we can help them thrive while they're in school. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Weber. Councilor Pepen, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And good morning, everyone. It's so good to see so many young faces in this chamber. This conversation is so important to me because in reality, I want to put the data and the policy to the side, but it's because I myself am a slave to my phone. And I sometimes am in these council meetings or in a big group of people, and I find myself distracted by social media, by emails, by text messages that are coming through endlessly in this day and age. And what really recently something touched me was that I went on a pilgrimage with about 40 youth. I went to Italy with my church, and one of the main components of that trip was that the youth had to leave their phone behind. And it was so that they can fully immerse into the trip. And what I noticed is that the youth that I had seen day after day be so distracted with their phones were now speaking to one another. They were talking about their lives. They were singing, we were dancing, we were on the bus, and everyone was just talking the whole time. So I was able to see a whole other side of it, to the point where I ended up giving up my phone for 3 days. And I felt different. And when it says that social media gives anxiety and ADHD or just distraction, this isn't just true for youth. I feel the same way as well. I'm 28 years old. You know, I had iPhone in high school. I had social media in high school. So I know what that type of distraction could do to just the learning experience, and even just you as a human being. I feel a lot more comfortable when I'm not using my phone. So I wanted to get the perspective of the students that are here today, which is why I'm so glad that you're all here, to hear what's your perspective. What is it that you guys want to experience in schools, and how we can come up with a solution that is beneficial to all of us, not just for our future, but just for our well-being every day. So thank you to all my co-sponsors. Thank you to the chair for making this hearing possible. I look forward to the conversation today.
Awesome. Thank you, Councilor Pepen. Councilor Durkin, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. And just to say to Councilor Pepen, I wish I had given up my phone the last 3 days. It would have really helped me in my mental health. So I really appreciate all of the students and all of the folks that are here. I especially want to shout out Sociedad Latina. They do great work in District 8, and really honored to see youth here. And it sounds like from the Senate side that there's a version of a bill that has passed, and so the House is yet to. So this hearing could not be at a more important moment. And just want to thank all of my colleagues who are working on this issue, but especially Councilor Weber and Councilor Pepen for letting me be a co-sponsor on this. And again, also the Attorney General's office for all that they did to put together this report with Sociedad Latina and a lot of other youth groups. So excited by the conversation. And I just want to thank Councilor Weber and Councilor Santana for putting together a hearing with translation. And I know that a lot of times it takes a lot of energy to put together a great hearing, but to have in the middle of August our seats filled and people interested in this issue, I think it shows a lot of energy and the impact that this hearing could have. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilor Durkin. We'll now go in order of arrival, starting with Councilor Flynn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for bringing us together. Thank you for the panel that will present and for the testimony from the public, from Boston Public School System as well. Also want to acknowledge the exceptional team from Attorney General Campbell's office that is also here. Andrea was an exceptional city councilor and doing a tremendous job as the Attorney General for the Commonwealth. This debate around phones in public schools is important, and I'm here to listen and learn. But one factor I do want to add to the topic is the bullying that we often see in schools against one another. I think we have to ensure that any student is not subjected to any type of bullying or intimidation through social media. maybe one way for that, to prevent that, is having a strict ban on phones in schools, but also ensuring that students with disabilities also have access to a phone in case they need it for various reasons. But again, here to learn more about this proposal. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Flynn. Councilor Murphy?
Thank you, Chair, for gathering us. Thank you for everyone who's here. Looking forward to hearing from the students. And if you were here last Friday in the chamber, Councilor Mejia and Chip from Greatest Minds had a mock trial with many students. And I came in and I gave some feedback because when I came in, they were talking about this exact thing. Should cell phones be banned? So this side was in favor, that side was against it, and they were trying to come up with some really, good reasons on both sides. So it was great to hear directly from our students who this would impact, but I do just want to highlight a few things. I know that the hearing order is talking about social media, and social media, we're only talking about social media, that there is a lot of discussion and data and studies that have been done on this topic, and the impact it has on everyone, not just young girls in middle school. It's college kids, adults, parents. Everyone. Social media has there is a positive side to it, but there's also a very dangerous negative side to social media. But if we're also talking about phone use, our smartphones are computers, and I do think it has to also come up that if we're asking our students to not be distracted and put away our phones, we have to also, walk that talk. I was a teacher in Boston Public Schools for over 20 years. My kids are adults now, but when they were younger in school, there was no smartphones. But by the time high school came around, but my two youngest, definitely there was phones in schools. But if you come to any council meeting, all 13 of us may be on our cell phone at the same time. So if you look around and you saw everyone here in this chamber, many times 12, 11 of us are on their cell phones while, colleagues are talking or important things are going on. And I referenced when I spoke last Friday to the group of kids, how we had a meeting. Councilor Santana, you had a working session and the school department was here. Superintendent Skipper and her leadership team, and all of them had their laptops open, and they were doing important things, I know, but there's so many devices that we have now. If it's our Apple Watches, our iPads, our computers. So I just want to make sure that we're looking at all of the digital devices in ways that we can get distracted. And at the end of the day, I just want to make sure our students feel that they're getting the best out of their education, and that we're here to listen and support and see what's the best way to go forward. So thank you for putting together some good panels, and looking forward to the conversation.
Awesome. Thank you, Councilor Murphy. Councilor Fitzgerald, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Most importantly, at least what I find, when you're a young person in school in BPS, and thank you very much to the folks at Sociedad Latina and the Boston Public Schools that are represented here today, you're building the foundation of who you're going to become, and what you're learning at that age has an impact on who you become as an adult, the job you get, and how you sort of fit into society. If you were distracted in that only carries over. And I say that because I think about, I am now the parent of 3 young children, 8, 6, and 4 years old, and I find myself on the phone because of this job, right? And many jobs require this, where people are calling, people are sending you notes, watch this video, this, that, and the other thing. And it's a 24-hour job, and so you're supposed to be, as much as time, you can still find yourself connected to the phone, even when you're trying to do a job as important as parenting. So for the folks, the young people that are here today that are going to testify and listen in, think about how you want to be role models. You're already here today, right? You're here today because you're leaders. And if you want to be leaders in the future, then you have to practice what you preach. And so it's so important that in these foundational years, that you put the phone down, because that will only help. I didn't have a phone in high school, and I still find it difficult at times to make sure. Now, I don't want anyone walking away here thinking I'm a bad parent, okay? I love my kids, and I spend lots of time with them every second I can. But sometimes when duty calls and they come up to you and say, hey, Dad, get off the phone, it's heartbreaking. And I have that moment where I go, I wish I never had this thing. So I really want people to understand that it's not just about the school and the education. This is a lifestyle that you have to start putting the work in now in order to make sure you have the right habits in place. And so I look forward to the conversation. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Fitzgerald. I'm going to introduce, right before I introduce our first panel, we're going to introduce our first panel, and I'm also then going to take a few people out of order for public testimony. I do want to echo my, first thank my colleagues for being here. Thank all the students who are here. Really love that our chamber is filled with young people, especially in the summer. Just want to make sure that you all know that today and every day, City Hall is your home and that you're always welcome here. And, want to give a special shout out to Sociedad Latina, in my hometown neighborhood of Mission Hill. Really appreciate all the work that you all do. I also want to give a shout out to our AG's office and for y'all being here and all the work that you're doing on this issue. As many of my colleagues said, we're in an era right now where social media is almost taking over so many of our lives, and it's impacting especially our youth. And as someone who's prioritized our youth and are in communication with our youth on a daily basis, I see the impact that social media may have on your mental health, all the things that you read, how you want people to perceive you, how you want to be perceived, and it's exhausting, right? I find myself scrolling also on TikTok before going to bed, and watching funny videos and stuff. But there's a lot more to it. There's a lot more impacts, and I'm just looking forward to the conversations and looking forward to the experts, which are our youth here today. With that, let's get started with our youth panel. As I introduce you all, if you all can just come down and sit, we have from our youth panel Wandel Trotman from the English. He's an English High graduate and is also a youth with Sociedad Latina. Laura Lara Soto, junior at Fenway High School with Sociedad Latina. Layden Mohammed is a rising junior at Boston Latin School. Jaden Santos, who's a rising junior at Boston Arts Academy. Really love that we have youth here today with us talking on this very important issue. I'm going to turn the floor over to you all. If you all can just state your name for the record, and I'll turn it over to you all for any opening statements and remarks.
Buenos días, mi nombre es Wandel. Actualmente vivo en Roxbury y recientemente me gradué de la escuela English High School. Adicionalmente, estoy representando a Sociedad Latina, que es una organización sin fines de lucro y de desarrollo juvenil, donde formo parte de su personal y soy exalumno. El día de hoy estoy acá para comunicar algunas recomendaciones sobre la educación acerca de la tecnología en las escuelas públicas de Boston y cómo podemos nosotros, como jóvenes, aprovecharla de una mejor manera.
Good morning, City Councilors. My name is Wandel. I currently live in Roxbury, and I recently graduated from English High School. In addition, I'm representing Sociedad Latina, which is an organization it's a non-profit organization working with the development of youth. And there I'm part of their staff, and I am also an alumnus. Today, I am here to communicate some of the recommendations regarding education surrounding technology in public schools in Boston, and how we, as young people, can take the best advantage of it.
Al igual que los maestros de nuestras escuelas, el personal de Sociedad Latina experimentó de primera mano los efectos perjudiciales del uso del teléfono celular durante el programa extraescolar y decidió intentar un verano sin celulares en 2024.
Just like the teachers here, we, the students in Sociedad Latina, we experienced the problems regarding social media and cell phones, and we wanted to experiment and see what we could do.
Nuestro proceso para desarrollar un entorno sin celulares ni dispositivos fueron estos 4.
Our process in order to develop a school environment without the cell phones were the following 4.
El primero, Sociedad Latina desarrolló una encuesta solicitando sugerencia a los jóvenes antes de implementar un programa piloto de verano sin celulares. Algunos jóvenes pidieron que se les permitiera usar su celular durante la hora de almuerzo.
First of all, Sociedad Latina implemented a pilot program where during the summer we asked the students to work without having their cell phones. Some of the students requested to be able to have their cell phones during lunch period.
Segundo, un comité de personal trabajó en el desarrollo de un plan de implementación. Esto incluyó la redacción de una política piloto. Se elaboró una política escrita con sus consecuencias junto con una carta bilingüe que se compartió con los padres sobre los planes para un verano sin celulares.
Okay. Second point, we developed a plan to be implemented. It was a pilot plan. And so we had a network. And what we wrote was the guidelines. It was bilingual, and it was shared both with the students and with the parents on how to work without cell phones during the summer.
También Sociedad Latina tuvo reuniones con los jóvenes con antelación y sus padres antes del inicio del programa de verano para explicarles la nueva política.
Also, Sociedad Latina had a meeting with the young people and with their parents in order to speak about how this program was going to be implemented during the summer program.
Tercero, tanto en la carta a los padres como en la reunión, Sociedad Latina destacó las preocupaciones que los jóvenes les habían transmitido a través de una encuesta interna posterior a la pandemia sobre su salud mental y bienestar.
Third, after this letter that was sent both to parents and to students, which was done after also a survey that was done among the group after COVID, where it was tried to see what was happening with the mental health and development of youth during this period.
También se analizó el impacto que las redes sociales y el ciberacoso estaban teniendo en ellos.
Also analyzed was the effect of the social media and social bullying, the effect that this was having upon them.
Cuarto, Sociedad Latina también destacó la pérdida de conexión social entre los jóvenes como resultado de la pandemia. Así,
Also, Sociedad Latina studied what was the loss of human contact sociologically among the students during the pandemic.
así como algunos de los impactos negativos del aumento del uso de celulares y redes sociales.
Also, we looked at the negative impact in society with the increase of use of cell phones and social media during this period.
De igual manera, el personal proporcionó estadísticas de algunos distritos escolares sobre el efecto positivo en el rendimiento académico, así como una mayor conexión entre los estudiantes al tener entornos sin celulares durante la jornada escolar.
In addition to this, they were also expressed among the school districts some of the positive effects that there were among the students by using social networks and their cell phones, both in their communication, their contact, and also in their academic development, the positive effects.
En general, las familias se mostraron positivas con respecto al verano sin celulares. Les preocupaba poder comunicarse con sus hijos adolescentes y qué sucedería durante una emergencia.
In general, the families showed a positive aspect about using cell phones during the summer because they did want to be able to communicate with their teenagers and be able to see what would happen in case of an emergency, be able to be in contact with them.
Sociedad Latina, de igual manera, garantizó que contaría con alguien que pudiera enviar mensajes o contactar a los jóvenes por teléfono en caso de emergencia.
Sociedad Latina, what they did was they guaranteed also that there would be someone that would be sending messages and would be able to contact the young students in case of an emergency.
También se enfatizó que se ha demostrado que es más seguro para los jóvenes no tener sus celulares durante emergencias externas.
It was also stressed that it was able to be proven that it was safer for students not to have their cell phones during the time of extreme emergencies.
También se solicitaron a las familias a que planificaran y se comunicaran con sus hijos la noche anterior o por la mañana para apoyar a la nueva política.
It was also asked from the families to plan with their children the night before and the night after how they were going to communicate with their children.
También permitieron que los jóvenes tuvieran sus teléfonos durante el almuerzo. Como se mencionó también, esto fue una sugerencia de los jóvenes.
Also, it was allowed to the students were allowed to have their phones during the lunch hour, as this was a suggestion that came from the students themselves.
También se permitió que los jóvenes tuvieran sus teléfonos en las excursiones siempre y cuando no estuvieran afuera ni se estuvieran usando.
Also, students were allowed to have their phones during field trips or outside, as long as they weren't having their phones outside or were using them actively.
Personalmente, cuando fui estudiante en la English High School, la implementación del Yonder fue algo muy estresante al principio.
Well, for me personally, when I was a student at English High School, when we first implemented this program, it was very stressful at first.
Pero más tarde comprendí que tener conversaciones en persona, en vez de estar en mi teléfono, puede ser algo productivo y que, tal como me pasó, puede ayudar a otros jóvenes a desarrollar conversaciones fructíferas para su futuro.
But afterwards, I was able to understand that being able to have in-person conversations instead of having them over the phone was leading to very productive conversations, and it was something that was working very well in having all these conversations.
En conclusiones, concejales, es necesario tomar acción inmediata para que no se pierdan estos beneficios que ayudarán a los jóvenes a tener un futuro provechoso. Muchas gracias.
In conclusion, what I would say, it's important to take these actions, and because this will lead to very important benefits that will help all of us. I want to thank you for your attention.
Ahora pasamos a Laura Lara Soto.
Now we're going to hear from Laura Lara Soto.
Buenos días a todos, mi nombre es Laura Lara Soto y soy líder juvenil en Sociedad Latina, participando en el programa Jóvenes Comunitarios Organizadores.
Good morning to all. My name is Laura Lara Soto. I'm a youth leader in Sociedad Latina, and I am part of this program, Youth Community Organizers.
Estoy aquí porque tengo un profundo conocimiento sobre las políticas de uso de teléfonos móviles en las escuelas de BPS. Además, he tenido la oportunidad de trabajar en talleres educativos dirigidos a jóvenes enfocados en el uso responsable del celular, la prevención del ciberacoso, la ciudadanía digital y cómo identificar noticias falsas, incluidas aquellas generadas por inteligencia artificial.
I am here because I have a very deep knowledge about the policies of the use of cell phones in the schools of BPS. Also, I have had the opportunity of working in different workshops for you young people that have been focused on the responsible use of the cell phone, how to prevent cyberbullying, digital citizenships, and how to identify false news, including those that have been generated by artificial intelligence.
Basándolo en nuestra experiencia trabajando en estos temas, en Sociedad Latina, proponemos que se implementen medidas más estrictas en todas las escuelas de Boston. En Sociedad Latina creemos firmemente que los teléfonos móviles deben estar restringidos desde el inicio hasta el final del día escolar, para garantizar un ambiente más saludable, enfocado y seguro para todos los estudiantes.
Based on our experience and working with the different themes in Sociedad Latina, we propose that measures are implemented that are more restricted in all public schools in Boston. In Sociedad Latina, we firmly believe that cell phones should be restricted from the beginning to the end of the school day to guarantee a healthier, more focused, and safer environment for all the students.
De manera independiente de Sociedad Latina, también hablo como estudiante. Entiendo a aquellos que están en desacuerdo con las políticas que impondrían restricciones más estrictas al uso del teléfono móvil. Sin embargo, también reconozco que estas medidas pueden beneficiarnos como estudiantes, al mismo tiempo que debemos de tener en cuenta que estas políticas no son definitivas. Podemos contribuir a mejorarlas y adaptarlas a nuestras verdaderas necesidades en el futuro.
Regardless of Sociedad Latina, I'm here speaking as a student as well. I understand those who are not in agreement with the policies that will be more restricted when it comes to the use of cell phones. Nevertheless, I also recognize that those measures can be beneficial to the students. At the same time, we need to take into account that those policies are not written on stone. We can contribute to improve those, adapt them to our true needs in the future.
Los estudiantes deben participar en la implementación de las políticas. Nuestras voces deben ser escuchadas cuando se piense en consecuencias justas para infringir a las políticas o cuestiones relacionadas con el contacto con los familiares. Por favor, recuerden escuchar a quienes se verán más afectados por esto. Gracias.
Students should participate in the implementation of the policies. Our voices need to be heard when it comes to the discipline that's fair for not complying with the policies. When it comes to contacting the family members, please take into account who the ones that are going to be the most affected by this. Thank you.
Is this on? Okay. Hello, my name's Adon. I'm from BSAC and I go to Boston Latin School. Some of the topics I want to talk about today are safety. So many times during school, when an incident happens, let's say somebody is around the building or somebody breaks into the building, students don't find out until later on. And especially parents don't find out until after the fact. Many times when speaking to students, I find that they're able to communicate issues through their cell phones and through social media. If students don't have their phones, the city and BPS need an emergency contact system if students don't have access. Both parents and students deserve to know what is happening currently at their school. Social media can be used as a positive tool also. Many people are able to find friends, community through social media. Also, many students from vulnerable communities are able to connect with others through the use of social media. Also, I find that schools that already have Yonder pouches have to spend so much money on Yonder pouches that are already broken or unusable. And I think that in the long run, the long-lasting spending of Yonder pouches will take away from other opportunities that students can get. For also many students that have other commitments after school, it's going to be harder for them to go where they have to go. Students use their phones not just for social media, but also for transportation. Yes, trains in Boston tell students when it's going to arrive, but for buses, cars, other vehicles, they don't know unless they have their phone. Also, students that have after-school activities like sports games, stuff like that, it's going to be a hassle and a waste of time if they have to go from their class to their locker, to the locker room, all the way, and then also having to unlock their phone from the Yondu pouches. Also, if we are going to take away their phones during school hours, it should be reachable. In my school, at least, I don't have Yonder pouches yet, but we do have like pocket pouches on doors where students can get extra credit. So it's better to see it as like something you should do to keep phones away rather than a punishment. At last, adults should be leading by example. I know that many teachers, administrators, and also substitute teachers have used their phone during school hours. And I think that if they're allowed to use it, so should we. We know adults need their phones for important things, but so do we. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you, Sociedad Latina, for joining us, and City Hall for having us for this important day. I'm here with the Boston Student Advisory Council, also known as BSAC. This student-led council mission is to uplift student voice and to advocate for students at all schools in BPS, and we are here today to do so. To connect back to what Boston's mission is, to prepare students for secondary education and the future. Technological advancements will always continue to grow, and that will never change. I think it is very important for us to adapt with that and learn how to grow with the advancements in technology and not eliminate them completely. Because in secondary education, there will not be taken away our phones, and we will learn how to use them and adapt it into our curriculum. And I think it is important to build with that and to learn how to use technology in a proper way for the future, where it is inevitable to use it at all times. I think it's also important for teachers to build a good environment and build with students. Eliminating cell phones and taking them away from students the school day will cause an unhealthy environment where students feel oppressed and feel like they have no control over their own lives. And I think it is important for students to build responsibility and build their own ability to control themselves for the future, and so they can become proper adults and be educated and learn how to use their bodies responsibly. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for those powerful testimony, and again for being here. I'm definitely I feel educated and feel motivated by your words. We're not going to go, first I want to acknowledge that we've been joined by Councilor at Large Julia Mejia and City Council President Rusi Luijen. We're going to go now to to my colleagues for questions. Again, we have 3 panels today because different panelists and people who are who are going to be testifying have hard stops. For this panel, for the panel number 1, we're going to ask counselors to just have 1 question for our youth, and then we'll move forward. So starting with the lead sponsors, and then I'll go in order of arrival. Councilor Weber, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you, and thank you very much. Great job. Not that you need me to tell you that, but your testimony was wonderfully presented. I know we have panels of adults who don't do this well, so just thank you, and thank you for caring about this issue and helping us figure out how the city can deal with this in a way that's best for our students. I guess just in terms of your experience with social media, I guess, do you find yourself I know I pick it up and you get lost in your phone. I guess, in terms of does that happen to you? What kinds of apps are you looking at, or if you, want to talk, I don't know I think my kids use TikTok and all that stuff, but, do you find they call it doom scrolling? Do you do that? What kind of impact that has on your day? I don't know. Anything you want to say about that?
Sometimes I do find myself lost in my phone, but I think on apps like TikTok or Instagram. But I think ways that students or just adults can manage that is through like time management and just having organization. On those apps, you can put settings to like have like a time limit on how long you can stay on your phone. For me, my time limit is 20 minutes, so I know once the little icon shows up, I go back to, doing what I need to do.
Okay, thank you. Thank you thank you for being here. I really appreciate it and everything, all four of you. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Weber. Councilor Pepan, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you to the four panelists here today. Gracias por su testimonio. Agradezco que ustedes están aquí y hablando en su idioma también, so gracias. And I also appreciate the fact that there's like different perspectives just in those four panels. I think that that's very healthy for this conversation. So I really appreciate that. I'm sorry, can you remind me your name? Yes.
Oh, my name's LaDawn.
Adana?
LaDawn.
LaDawn, sorry, LaDawn. I really appreciated your testimony because it's very true that students depend on their phones for transportation, and a lot of them play after-school sports. I used my phone for both of those things when I was in high school. So I wanted to get your perspective of, like, what do you think about the limitation of the use of phones during the school hours, but ensuring that the students get their phones right before dismissal so that there is an interruption for transportation arrangements, for after-school activities? Because what I envision is that it isn't a full ban, right? You do go to school with your phone, but there is limitations to the use of it. And to your point about the use of social media, it's good to build friends, but limiting the use of social media in school, you could use it after school. So I wanted to get your perspective of, like, or any one of the four panels, of what's the right balance to make sure that you feel like you can still manage your day-to-day arrangements and your after-school stuff, but at the same time not being distracted doing that during the school hours, if any.
To answer your question, I think that to have like a balance between this, maybe students should have their phones maybe during just passing periods or during breaks, but when it comes time to, get that work done, they should just put their phone aside. But I agree with you're saying.
Yeah, that's what I'm envisioning of, like, for some of this. I know that you said your school doesn't have the pouches yet, but, like, is it the case where when you get to a certain classroom, I know we change classrooms, right, during periods, do you give up your phone every single time, or any of you, when you go to a different classroom? Is that what you envision?
Wait, so do you mean like once I get to the class?
Right. So, like, let's say I'm in the hallway, right? I'm going from class A to class B. I have my phone on me. I give my phone back to the teacher that does class B. And then you get it back at the end of class B. And then you give it to the teacher that does class C.
I think that is what I'm trying to say, yeah.
Okay. No, that's what I thought. So it's like a grace period of when you have your phone and when you don't. This is my mind trying to formulate solutions of how we could potentially do this in a way that it's not a super ban, if not just more like, all right, I'm in the classroom, here's the phone. When I'm done, give it back, type of thing. So thank you for that. That is all I have for this panel. But I'm just very thankful for the fact that we got I see a hand though. Yeah.
A inicios de el último año escolar en mi escuela sí se implementaron los pouches, los bolsos magnéticos, y es cierto que al final del día cuando hablas el pouche era muy tedioso porque había mucha gente, poco control, todo el mundo quería salir rápido. Yo misma participo en Sociedad Latina después de la escuela y tenía que llegar rápido y era un poco tedioso, pero ese implemento de esa política, no política, de esta regla de teléfonos móviles fuera desde inicio del día hasta el final, me ayudó mucho, se reflejó mucho en mis grados. Mis profesores en las notas de progreso también me lo decían que hubo un cambio y también nos ayudó durante el lunch o alguna actividad en grupo conectar más estrechamente, más real. Porque no estaban hablando sobre un tema, por ejemplo, que vimos en TikTok, ¿qué dice esto en TikTok? Que no sé qué, y no podemos discutir eso, sino que tenemos una conversación como de tú a tú más real. Y también...
One second, please. Un momento, por favor. We implemented the pouches at the beginning of the year, the school year last year. And it's true that at the end of the day, when you open the pouch, it's almost like a mystery. People are out of control. They're trying to figure out what they need to do. For example, I have to go to, I have the Sociedad Latina activities, so I have to figure out quick where I need to go to. And it was a bit tedious when they implemented the policy. Well, not policy, the rule. But I have to say that implementing the pouches from the beginning of the end to the end of the school day, it helped a lot. It was reflected on my grades. The teachers actually told me that they saw a big change, and it helped during lunchtime too, or when we had group activities, because at the time we actually needed to have real connections, true connections. We were not just talking about what had happened on TikTok, we were talking about real things. Continúa, por favor.
También yo personalmente soy una persona que gasta mucho tiempo en su celular. Yo gasto muchísimo tiempo en mi celular y muchas veces no tengo como la voluntad de yo misma querer soltarlo, aunque yo sé que lo que debo hacer en la escuela es importante. Y con esta regla me benefició muchísimo y yo quiero que todos los estudiantes tengan la misma oportunidad que yo de beneficiarse.
Also, personally, I use my phone a lot. I use it a lot. And sometimes I'm not willing to let go of it. And I can say that this rule at school was very important to me. It was a rule that was beneficial to me, and I would like other opportunities to have the same opportunity and the benefits that I received.
Yo también soy igual, que necesito las reglas para poder controlarme y controlar el uso del teléfono. So, entiendo la verdad que después que implementaron la póliza en su escuela, pudo usar el tiempo más adecuadamente. So, la verdad que le agradezco eso y la perspectiva que ustedes traen al concilio hoy. I was just saying that just really appreciate that perspective of seeing how she benefited from the pouch system from the start of the school day to the end of the school day, and how her grades ended up becoming better and everything. So, and I mentioned how even rules like that would even benefit me. So I just thank you for being here. I really appreciate both your perspectives here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Pepin. I'm now going to turn it over to Councilor Durkin. Just to remind it for my colleagues, because when you ask the question, just give our translators a few seconds to translate so that way we can give the opportunity for all of our panelists to be able to answer. Councilor Durkin, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. Sometimes I forget how much Spanish I comprehend when people are speaking slowly. I literally thought that Enrique was speaking in English. So thank you so much to this panel. I did want to dig in a little bit with you because you're at BLS. So BLS actually does have it's an honor system in terms of no phones. And they feel like that works for them. I know I toured BLS with the head of school, Jason Gallagher, and honored actually that I think all 4 of the schools are in District 8, so I'm honored to represent all of you in a way, at least during the school day. So I just wanted to dig into that a little bit more because I have seen the head of school at BLS actually take the phone out of someone's hand when they're in the hallway. So you aren't allowed to use your phone out in public. So I'm just kind of curious how that works for the school, and I think, and I know and the reason I'm not trying to get you in trouble, and I'm definitely not trying to get you on the spot, but I think your testimony specifically about how you need access to your phones. Can you just talk a little bit more about sort of why it's important that you have access to your phone even though people aren't using it during their classes?
Okay.
It's all right. I know this is a very tough question.
No, it's fine, it's fine. So you were saying like why it's important to use our phones. Well, at my school, I know I've seen teachers take people's phone away. My phone has been taken away. I think that there's always like a time and place for everything. Like I know in some classes, teachers will allow students to use their phones for the right purposes, or like if we're playing a Kahoot game or a Gimkit, students will use their phones if they don't have their Chromebook. So I think it's always like, there's always going to be exceptions to certain rules.
Gotcha. And I guess my follow-up is that I've heard a lot of positive things about Yonder pouches. I've also heard a lot of negative things, like people have found a way to game the system and get them open during the school day. Obviously, I think you spoke to like the ones that are broken. I can't possibly weigh in on whether that is a good investment for all of BPS schools. But I do think if the legislation at the State House leads before we have the technical solution for this issue, that would be a shame. I'm hearing directly from students that they like the idea of, some students like the idea of not having their phone during the day, but don't feel like potentially the Yonder pouches are the right solution. I know I went to a school where you had to turn in your phone during the school day, and people found other ways to get around it. They would have duplicate phones. I won't admit that was me, but so I just think that there's always a way to get around the thing. So I think that the way that BLS is going about the policy of having it be an honor policy, that maybe is not strict enough for certain school communities, but might be strict enough for them. And I think we need to figure out that solution. I'm not anti-Yonder pouch, and I don't think anyone should be. But I do think if students are finding ways around things, I have had to use that if you go to like specific concerts where they don't want video. I've had that experience where I personally could not figure out how to open it during the few hours I was in the concert, but I do think that it's an imperfect solution, and I do think if there was a bill that we already have this, it passed through the Senate, if it passed through the House, I do think other solutions would emerge because the market would then be there for there to be other solutions. But just want to thank you all for your testimony, and I think the goal of today was really to just get your perspectives. And I don't think that we will come to consensus because this is something that's so personal to students. And sorry, go ahead.
¿Puedo hablar? Por eso en Sociedad Latina queremos que cuando se implemente la política, los estudiantes trabajen en conjunto para crear una comunidad más unida, que promuevan las políticas de BPS y que puedan todos estar de acuerdo y que podemos usar esta política como un beneficio y que podemos llegar a un acuerdo entre el estudiante y BPS sobre cómo se debería usar el teléfono en la escuela. Porque yo sé que hay muchos estudiantes que lo utilizan para tomar apuntes, para actividades como Kahoot o Bluecat. También hay otros que tienen medicamentos y necesitan estar en contacto con su padre, y también que en high school estamos creando una carrera algo importante, como la preuniversidad, es como tú estás haciendo contacto, actividades, y tú estás esperando una llamada importante que tú como joven tienes que contestar, y es necesario el teléfono, y son cosas que uno quiere que BPS trabaje con nosotros para que podamos tener eso durante la escuela.
At Sociedad Latina, we want to implement the policy with the students. We want the students to work together to build stronger communities. We want them to promote, once the BPS policies are promoted, we want everyone to be in agreement of those, because those policies can be used for the benefit of the students. And we want the students and BPS to work together to see how the phones can be used at the schools. I know that students are using their cell phones to take notes, to use educational apps. Some of them use them to have medicine reminders, to talk to their parents, especially at high school. This is what we do before we go, it's like pre-college. We're building a career. We need to be doing networking. We have activities. There's an important call we're waiting for, and we need to use the phone. And we should work along BPS to see when we can have the phones available.
Thank you so much. Gracias.
Thank you, Councilor Durkin. Councilor Fitzgerald, you have the floor.
Thank you. This goes to any of you guys on the panel. One, great job. Thank you for being here. Everyone did awesome. What do you think high school was like for those who went before cell phones were invented? And what do you think some of the issues they had to face were that you would think that they would have to face without having a cell phone? This is for you guys, the panel. Any of you guys can speak up. What do you think? Like, say I went to high school. I didn't have a cell phone in high school. What do you think it was like for me? How do you think I went about solving issues or throughout my day? I'll tell you what I did, guys. I figured it out, right? It's what you got to do. You didn't have anyone holding your hand. You couldn't look up the answer on the spot. You had to learn. You had to use what was inside your head and figure out a way to solve that problem, rather than saying, just give me the answer. And you know what that did? That helps your brain grow. It helps you create those problem-solving systemic things inside your body that are going to help you figure out the problems later on in life. And I'll tell you what, would it have been nice? 1,000%. Hey, Mom, pick me up. Practice is over, right? Things like that. But you'd have to carry a quarter on you to go to a payphone. Or you'd have to go to the office and use a phone. You'd have to figure it out, right? And so I think there's a benefit to that I think a lot of kids are missing. And listen, you guys are smart. I'm Boston Latin, by the way, as well, so I appreciate that. You guys are smart. You're here. You're confident. You speak well. You guys are doing all the right things. But I don't want you guys missing out on the key component, and that's using this and strengthening this muscle up here, okay? Because that is the most important thing you can do. And this phone, I know as much as you say we should have it and it's a right and I think it's good, I am telling you as someone who did not have it and now does, this thing sucks, okay? I'm going to say that language in front of you all to drive that point home. It is not a good thing. And it is having an effect on the youth of America, and there are positive things that can come out of it, but the bad things outweigh that greatly. Take that someone who has been on both sides of this now. So I only ask that to make sure you guys understand what you're robbing of yourselves if you rely on this too much. Now, I understand today's age, it makes us reliant on it, right? You've got your cards on here, you've got your pass on here, you've got things where you just scan QR codes. So you're saying, how can I go through life without this? I challenge you all to figure it out, okay? See if you can find a way without using your phones. That's a challenge that I pose to all the young people here. See if you can figure out the next time a problem comes up and you reach for your phone to solve it, go, no, I'm going to put this away and let me figure out a different way to do this. And then let me know what you come up with. Because I think you'll find, one, you'll learn something. Two, you'll be proud of yourself. And three, I don't know, you guys can tell me what three is. I didn't have three when I came up with this speech, okay? One of the issues, too, that we have to realize as parents, as adults looking out for the youth of Boston, many of those issues, when you talk about social media, they happen not during school hours. How many of you know of things that have occurred at night, over the weekend, and then when you show up on Monday, that BS hits the door, right? Now those two people are face to face, and then it goes down. And we lack the authority to do anything about it because that did not occur on BPS property, right? The issue started, and so we're saying, well, we can't control it. They go home and they're their own kids, and they're having these fights at night and over the weekends and starting the trouble that then spills over into the school that then disrupts the education that you guys are getting. So there's a lot of ways. It's not just the direct you using your phone that's the issue. There's the spillover of other issues coming in and distracting you from your education, right? So I just want you guys to be aware of those things as well and how you're affected in ways you may not even know by this stuff. I think the only thing I would ask is how many minutes a day, and this is to all four of you again, how many minutes a day this summer, right, since school was out, have you all spent outside, unsupervised, and not on your phone? I know you're not keeping track, so it's a hard question to answer. But if you could, even a percentage, outside, unsupervised, meaning the adults aren't there, you just hanging out with your friends, you guys are right, let's go down to downtown, let's hop on the train, whatever it may be, and not on your phone. My guess, probably minimal. Right? We won't say anything, but you could probably use a lot more of it, and I suggest you guys try that as well. There's not me yelling at you guys, it's the parent in me coming out. I apologize. I'm practicing for my kids. Thank you for giving me that opportunity. You guys all did a fantastic job up here today, and I'm proud of all you guys and what you represent for this city. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Councilor Fitzgerald. The slogan, figure it out, right? Just figure it out. Great. We've also been joined by District 4 City Councilor, Councilor Worrell. I will now turn the floor over to Councilor Mejia. Just for those who are joining in, we're doing one question for this youth panel, and then we'll move on with some other panels that we have. Councilor Mejia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. And I would like to echo that I love to see young people leading this conversation because oftentimes we're making decisions about you without you. So to have you here speaking on behalf of your peers is really important. And I want to give a special shout out to Mahi, also Greatest Minds, and Madison Park, students who were here on Friday doing a mock hearing regarding this issue, and I know some of them are here today as well, so thank you for continuing to follow this. And special shout out to Sociedad Latina. Es bien importante haber nuestros estudiantes aquí hablando en español, defendiendo su voz en este lugar. So aquí como una hispana estoy súpermente orgullosa de ustedes que están aquí representando también a sus colegas.
I also have this big shout out to Sociedad Latina. It's very nice, very important to have students here speaking in your language, in Spanish. So I really want to appreciate that you are here. I do want to let you know.
Thank you. So this for me is really interesting. I have a 15-year-old daughter who is always on her phone. And I think that there were some things that you had mentioned about like emergencies that happen at school. And sometimes I don't know about those things. And the way that I know that something's happening at her school is because she sends me a text. And that has caused a lot of anxiety when I'm here in the chamber and I receive a text from my daughter that the school is on lockdown. And so I think that there is something to be said about having direct access to your child and information that is vital. And I want to just acknowledge the peace of mind that I have to know that I can communicate with my daughter directly in case of emergency. So I just want to acknowledge that the point that you made earlier. And at the same time, I know how difficult it has been for her to really focus on her studies. I get text messages, emails from her teachers, your daughter has been on the phone and she should be focusing in class. And so those self-regulation skills, while I do appreciate the importance of self-control, I also know that it's hard for young people to self-control. Especially when there's a little bochinche or a little gossip happening on social media. Everybody wants to know who's going to like a comment, who's going to troll is what they're calling it. Somebody's always trolling somebody. So all of that is happening at school, and that does take away from learning time. So I guess my question is, you know, I'm always trying to figure out what is the right balance. So if we heard about flip phones, what about restricting social media so that people can have access to vital information when it's important? What would you say is the happy medium here? What would you say? How can we get to a place where everyone feels like they have won?
Hello. Oh, so I think there's a disconnect with the issue we're trying to solve, and that we're eliminating the issue, but really it's just putting a pause. Like in school, it's just putting a pause on when we can use it, and then it all goes back, because the phone is just immediate dopamine to an already vulnerable brain. We are students and we're developing, and that dopamine that we get from the phone, it triggers and we want more of it. So I think the true issue is the lack of discipline we have. So I think we need to reteach students how to be disciplined instead of just eliminating the phone, because that doesn't make you more disciplined. That just takes away what you want, because you want that sense of dopamine. But we need to figure out a way to teach students how to have discipline and self-control. So I think that's what we truly need to solve.
And taking the phone away wouldn't help you with that?
I think it would help you with that, but it wouldn't really teach you how to have discipline. It would just take it, but you're not really truly learning anything.
¿Ustedes qué piensan de esa pregunta?
Yo pienso que nos estamos enfocando en el lado negativo. Y las redes sociales y el uso constante del teléfono nos afecta también psicológicamente.
Well, I think that it's not just that. Us using the phone, it also affects us psychologically.
Y usarlo durante la escuela, o que la escuela nos enseñe a nosotros mismos cómo ser responsables con nuestro teléfono. Pudieran haber clases sobre cómo implementar la tecnología de una manera disciplinada en nuestras vidas, porque la generación de ahora tenemos muy personalizado el teléfono somos nosotros y el teléfono. Siempre.
So, and I think it would also help if the school would teach us maybe to have a class and how to be able to self-discipline, how to use the technology, because right now the phone is very personalized. The phone is us and we are the phone.
Y si también tenemos redes sociales en la escuela, no vamos a tener, como quien dice, una conexión más real, sino conexiones superficiales.
And if we also have social networks within the school, we're not going to have these real social, personal communications and contacts. We'll just have these superficial contacts.
I know we don't have more time. Thank you. Gracias.
Councilor Mejia, Council President Lujan, you have the floor.
Thank you so much to the students who are here for your advocacy, for your well thought out opinions, and for sharing ideas, not just for you and for your generation, but for the generations to come. And I want to shout out a visitor in my office today, Fayanji, who is here in the audience. And we are trying to make sure that our kids are best prepared, that you all have all the tools you need to be successful. And I think sometimes, as many of you state, social media can be a deterrent, but there are reasons why it's important, like especially in this day and age, for you to have access to your phones. Do any of you have an instance where having your phone you felt like was a necessity for either an emergency or something that was happening, either in the school or in your personal lives? Is it no examples of that? Yeah.
Well, for me, I think it's almost an everyday thing. I do a lot of clubs outside of school where the group chat is on my phone, or even working with BSAC, Boston Student Advisory Council. I get out of school almost at the same time that the BSAC starts. So making sure I could get there on time, checking the bus schedule, also communicating because things change all the time. So making sure that we're going to be at a certain place or that we're going to do this at this time. So it's knowing exactly what I'm going to do right after school. And if I'm going to this club, if the location is going to change or things like that is very important. It's almost every day for me.
Thank you.
I also agree. At my school, when clubs are canceled or sports are canceled because of the weather or like other events, they say it on the intercom. But like for like outside programs, you don't know that until you have your phone. And I think that if we don't have our phone, then we won't know. And then also like sometimes like I don't know what's happening until I check my phone. Like just today, I didn't know that I was supposed to be here at 8:30 and I was gonna show up at 9, and I wouldn't have known that unless I looked at the group chat on my phone.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for that testimony. And my interns are here, high school students who are here at Latin Academy, Latin School, 2 of them. And I think that they agree with some of what you're saying. It really is about discipline, right? How are we teaching our young people discipline and whether a band would achieve discipline that is necessary for other areas in life. So I think that this is a really important discussion, and I want to thank my colleagues for having it, and thank you for doing a really great job of showing the pros and cons, showing us the pros and cons. Thank you.
Thank you, Council President. Council Worrell, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to all the youth that are here today. And I don't have a student age child yet, but I have a 2-year-old son, and I have older nephews and nieces, and sometimes I go back in between of, what would I be doing when, my son gets that age? Will he have a cell phone? Will he not? But just listening to all the points that everyone's making here today makes it a little, you guys are making it even harder for me to decide because I've always kind of like been anti-phone, but understanding that things are constantly changing, your push for teaching discipline instead of a straight up ban, makes perfect sense. So I just want to thank you for being here and helping us think this through and having this conversation with us. So thank you for your advocacy and thank you for being here. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Worrell. Great. So I also want to thank you all for being here. I do have one question, and it's for you, right? I think you mentioned, you want to teach discipline, and I think that's very important. But we just wanted to kind of dig into more of like what does that look like in school in terms of being able to teach you that, and then also just thinking about you and your friends, right? What will make your friends and you buy into that into that theory?
I think it could even be a class, but to buy into it's like, I think for me personally, I love to learn about the importance of things. Like coming to things like this, it's taught me to be more disciplined and be more into my community and build actual connections with people because I have that discipline, and I built that through learning with people about how it is important to step out of your phone. But a lot of people don't get the opportunity because they don't have those role models in their lives. So I think even our counselors in schools being more into the students and actually being a counselor and representing for the students and having that connectedness for students to feel like they don't need to step away from the real world and be in their own bubble because they feel connected with their community.
Awesome. No, thank you. Really, muchas gracias. Thank you so much to our youth panel for being here. You've given us a lot to think about, and we really appreciate you sharing your personal stories. And yeah, don't count on us. Any of us. We all represent you all, and we're here to serve you. But really appreciate our student panel with us here today. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm going to dismiss this panel. Yeah, we can give it up for them. going to dismiss this panel. I'm going to take 3 public testimony right now. So if Lisa Hirsch, Anna Bailey, and Vablis Gregman, and an Angel Pimentel. All right, so yeah, thank you so much for being here. If you can just introduce yourself for the record. And yeah, thank you so much for being here.
Wonderful. Thank you, Chair Santana, for holding this hearing. And thank you, Councilors Weber, Pepin, and Durkin for calling attention to this important matter. I also want to thank Mayor Wu, Superintendent Skipper, members of the Boston School Committee, and all the teachers and school professionals who work every day to improve the Boston Public Schools and the lives of our young people. And I especially want to thank all of the young people here today. I'm so impressed with all of you. My name is Liza Hirsch, and I'm the director of the Children's Justice Unit in the Office of Attorney General Andrea Joy Campbell. As you know, the Attorney General's office protects the citizens of Massachusetts against a broad spectrum of potential harms. We take a particular interest in protecting the well-being of young people through the work of our Children's Justice Unit. In May of 2023, the U.S. Surgeon General issued an advisory indicating that social media is, quote, an important driver of the youth mental health crisis and one that we must urgently address. The Surgeon General informed the public that it cannot be concluded, based on the evidence, that social media is safe for young people. Our office's conversations with Massachusetts parents, teachers, superintendents, child psychologists, nonprofit organizations, researchers, and high school students themselves over the past several years have reinforced the same concerns about the harms of social media on youth mental health. Our office has filed lawsuits against Meta, Instagram, and TikTok for violating consumer protection law by intentionally designing their applications to addict young users specifically, and then actively and repeatedly deceiving the public about the danger posed to young people by overuse of their products. And these lawsuits are still pending. Nationally, 72% of high school teachers say that students being distracted by cell phones is a major problem in their classroom. Massachusetts superintendents have voiced the same concerns in a survey that our office conducted in 2024. When asked about the impact of social media on students, superintendents across Massachusetts reported distractions, cyberbullying, harassment, fights recorded and posted on social media, impact on student anxiety and peer relationships, sharing of inappropriate sexual images, sleep disturbances, amongst other impacts. Conversely, amongst Massachusetts school districts that have implemented comprehensive cell phone policies, superintendents reported significant benefits for learning and overall school climate. 70% reported students being more engaged and attentive, and 82% reported no drawbacks to implementing comprehensive cell phone restrictions. Those districts that have implemented full-day bell-to-bell policies reported a complete transformation of their school culture. In response to concerns reported to our office, the Children's Justice Unit developed a cell phones and social media in schools toolkit, which we released this past January. The toolkit contains a model phone-free schools policy, information for school districts on best practices, and a guide for developing community norms regarding youth cell phone use in and out of school hours. Due to the gravity of the concerns, our office has also co-sponsored state legislation in January, along with Senator Sear, Representatives Peisch and Lippert-Garabedian. Attorney General Campbell filed the Study Act, which would require all public schools in Massachusetts to have policies preventing the use of personal cell phones and electronic devices during the school day, from the start to the end of the day, also known as bell-to-bell. A bell-to-bell phone-free schools policy enables students to be present and engaged during instructional time, as well as during passing periods, lunch, and non-instructional time, in order to promote not only improved focus in class, but the development of actual in-person social skills and healthy peer relationships. Furthermore, a bell-to-bell policy relieves teachers and administrators from the constant pressures of enforcing or policing cell phone use, both in the classroom and in the hallways. Exemptions to the policy would be provided in certain circumstances, such as to accommodate a student's disability. And student and family, this is important, student and family engagement, not suspension from school, would be used if a student violates the policy. While the Attorney General's office believes that a bell-to-bell, phone-free schools policy is clear best practice, there can and should be intentional efforts to actively seek the input of students in how the policy is implemented. For example, whether lock pouches, front office cubbies, or some other system is used, what the consequences should be for violating the policy, ways for students to reach their parents or employers or after-school providers during the day if needed for a legitimate purpose, and other implementation considerations. And our office is committed to partnering with many of the young people in this room and to keep this dialogue open. So I want to particularly thank BSAC and Sociedad Latina Youth for being here today and all of the other youth here. The Study Act also seeks to place specific restrictions on social media companies themselves to expand protections on youth social media accounts. Recognizing that social media companies make billions of dollars a year off of minor accounts, we believe that they have an obligation to keep our young users safe. By creating phone-free schools here in Massachusetts and in Boston, we as a Commonwealth take seriously the documented harms of social media and prioritize the learning environments, the peer relationships, the mental health and well-being of our youth. Thank you for the opportunity to be heard today.
Thank you so much, Lisa, for being here, and again, for all the work that our AG does on behalf of our youth and on this issue.
Thank you so much.
So, all right, yep, you can come up and you can just introduce your name and you can start your testimony.
Buenos días, mi nombre es Ana Báez y soy líder juvenil de Sociedad Latina en el programa de jóvenes organizadores comunitarios. Hoy les hablaré sobre la formación ética en la tecnología, su uso responsable y mi experiencia en Sociedad Latina.
My name is Ana Baez. I'm a youth leader in Sociedad Latina in the youth program who are community organizers. Today I will talk about ethical preparation in technology and its responsible use and the experience I have had in Sociedad Latina.
La tecnología está presente en casi todo lo que hacemos: estudiar, comunicarnos, buscar información o compartir momentos. Pero muchas veces la usamos sin pensar en las consecuencias. Por eso creo que es necesario recibir una formación ética desde jóvenes para aprender a usarla con conciencia y responsabilidad.
Technology is present in almost everything we do: studying, communication, looking for information, or sharing our time. But many times we're using it without thinking in its consequences. Because of this, I believe it is necessary to receive some kind of ethical education from the moment, even when we're young, so we are able to learn how to use technology conscientiously and responsibly.
Tener ética en la tecnología significa respetar a los demás en redes sociales, no compartir información falsa, cuidar nuestra privacidad y pensar en cómo nuestras acciones digitales afectan a otros. También es importante aprender a poner límites, no dejar que las redes nos controlen y saber desconectarnos cuando es necesario.
Having ethics in technology means to respect other people in social media, not sharing false information, how to take care of our privacy, and to think how our digital actions affect other people. It is also important to be able to learn how to set limits and not allow social media to control us, and to know how to disconnect when necessary.
En mi experiencia en Sociedad Latina, algo que me ha ayudado mucho es que nos piden dejar el celular durante las actividades. Al principio me costaba, pero ahora siento que eso me ha permitido concentrarme más, hablar con otras personas cara a cara y estar realmente presente. Me hizo darme cuenta de cuánto tiempo pasamos en el celular sin darnos cuenta.
My experience in Sociedad Latina, something that really helped me a lot was that we're asked to leave our cell phone during our activities. At the beginning, this was difficult for me, but now I do feel that it has allowed me to concentrate better, to be able to speak with others face to face, and to be truly present. This allowed me to see how much time we pass using our cell phones without realizing it.
Ahora uso la tecnología de forma más consciente. Pienso antes de publicar, cuido mi tiempo en redes y trato de usarlas para cosas que me hagan crecer. Me di cuenta que todos tenemos un rol en hacer un lugar más sano y respetuoso.
Now I am using technology more conscientiously. I think before I publish something, I take care of how much time I spend on the social media, and I try to use it for things that will make me grow. I realize that we all have a role to play in making the world a more healthy and respectful place.
Gracias a lo aprendido en Sociedad Latina, entendí que no solo somos usuarios, también somos responsables del tipo de mundo digital que queremos construir. Muchas gracias.
Thanks to what I have learned at Sociedad Latina, I was able to understand that we're not only users, we are also responsible of the type of digital world that we want to build. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias, Ana.
Good morning. My name is Angel Pimentel. I'm a rising junior at Boston Latin School. I'm here alongside BSAC to speak about the growing push in schools to ban and severely restrict student cell phone use, and why this approach is short-sighted and harmful. First and foremost, I would like to speak on the fact that Massachusetts is looking to ban cell phones, and I think this is a mistake because I think we need to teach our students how to be digitally responsible and have self-control, which is one of the richest things we can learn at our young age. I think this ban will be rebellious behavior from students and damage the relationships between teachers and students, which ruins the trust amongst them. Instead of banning phones, schools should be teaching responsible use. We're living in a digital world, and part of preparing students for the future is helping us build a healthy relationship with technology, not pretending it doesn't exist. Again, my name is Angel Pimentel, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Angel. Great. Do we also have Davis Guzman? Davis Guzman. Muchas gracias. We'll do this public testimony and then we'll invite our second panel.
Hola, muy buenos días. Mi nombre es Daibelis Guzmán, líder juvenil de Sociedad Latina en Roberry Cross Street. Y hoy les voy a hablar de la inteligencia artificial.
Good morning. I am Daibelis Guzman, a youth leader in Sociedad Latina in Roxbury. Today I'm going to talk about artificial intelligence.
La inteligencia artificial, AIA, está transformando la educación al favorecer herramientas que personalizan el aprendizaje. Por ejemplo, si utilizan plataformas inteligentes después de completar su tarea original, los estudiantes pueden recibir una retroalimentación inmediata adaptada a su nivel.
Artificial intelligence, AI, is transforming education as it offers tools that are personalizing learning. For example, if you use an intelligence platform after completing an original task, students are able to receive feedback immediately that has been adapted to their own level.
Sin embargo, comprender cómo funcionan los algoritmos es esencial para que los usuarios no solo consuman tecnología, sino que también la cuestionen. Esta capacidad crítica es una clave en un mundo donde la información es abundante, pero no siempre es veraz ni segura. Por lo tanto, fomentar la verificación de datos y el pensamiento independiente es necesario para el desarrollo académico y personal.
Nevertheless, understanding how the algorithms work is fundamental so that users are not only consuming technology, but that they will also go and question it. This critical capacity is key in a world where information is abundant, but it's not always either true nor safe. Therefore, to encourage the verification of data and independent thought is very necessary for academic and personal development.
También es crucial proteger la salud mental de los estudiantes y docentes y promover políticas para evitar la sobreexposición a las pantallas, la presión de rendimiento automatizado y el aislamiento digital. Por eso es que la tecnología debe diseñarse con principios éticos que incluyen la privacidad, la inclusión y el bienestar emocional.
Also, it's fundamental to be able to protect the mental health of students and teachers and to promote policies that will avoid the overexposure to screens, the pressure for automated performance, and also digital isolation. Because of this, I believe that technology must be designed with ethical principles that will include privacy, inclusion, and emotional welfare.
En las escuelas lo utilizan para hacer las cosas más rápido, sin contar que esto hace que el trabajo sea más a largo plazo. Si requerimos más educación sobre AI en las escuelas, se puede evitar esto. Muchas gracias y espero que puedan tomar en cuenta que ese es el punto de vista de un estudiante que la cual en muchas ocasiones utiliza la AI en sus trabajos de clase. Gracias.
In school, these are used in order to do things faster, without considering that this makes there'll be more work in the long term because of their use. If we do need to require more education regarding AI in schools, and that way we would be able to avoid this. Thank you very much. I hope that you take into consideration my words and that you remember that this is the point of view of a student who sometimes uses AI in her works and her homework.
Muchas gracias. Great. We will now invite our second panel. This is our administration panel. So can we invite Denise Rory, the Director of the Office of Youth Leadership with BPS, and then Caitlin, the famous Caitlin Murphy, the Principal of the English High School. Awesome. Thank you both so much for being here and present. I'll turn it over to you all for any remarks and opening statements, and then we'll turn it over to my colleagues for any questions.
Great, thank you so much. Hi, my name is Caitlin Murphy. I'm the principal of English High School. Thank you for the opportunity to speak here today and share the work that the English High School community has engaged in regarding student cell phone use during the school day. As an educator and a parent, I have seen firsthand both the challenges and benefits of the changing landscape of cell phone usage over the last 2 decades. While these mini computers in our pockets have certainly increased the speed with which we have access to information and to one another, when left unchecked, this increased access has significantly disrupted teaching and learning in a school setting, not to mention the dining room table or car ride to practice, during which one's questions about the day are sometimes met with vague mumbles from the back seat, while the occupants are fully consumed by whatever screen they have in their hand. Over the 17 years I have worked at English, we have had a variety of policies to respond to the increasing proliferation of cell phones among our student body. The current official policy of the Boston Public Schools, as established by the Boston School Committee in collaboration with BSAC, is that student cell phones must be turned off and put away for the duration of the school day. If students do not follow the policy, schools are permitted to hold their phones and ask a parent or guardian to pick up the device. Importantly, the district's policy has intended to be a floor, not a ceiling, when it comes to restrictions on technology with the potential to disrupt learning environments. I am grateful that the district has given schools the necessary flexibility to operationalize the policy in ways that are consistent with our school community's needs. In the early years of our phone policy, we initially focused on classroom-based procedures. Teachers had phone boxes or using over-the-door shoe holders as cell phone lockers. We found that our teaching staff was spending a disproportionate amount of time during class responding to students who had cell phones out and were distracted from the lesson at hand. Additionally, when a support staff would come to the room to engage with the student who was not following the policy, many students would become dysregulated and additional class time was lost. Sometimes multiple staff would have to work with a single student to get them to comply with the cell phone policy. Students would describe their cell phones as a sort of extension of themselves, and on more than one occasion, we had students elope from the building rather than turn their cell phone in. In 2018, we began a partnership with Yonder, a company that creates a locking phone pouch, which allows students to maintain possession of their phones but prevents them from accessing it. We started out with a classroom-based policy in which all teachers had a set of pouches that students were to put their phones in at the start of class. While this was an improvement on our previous efforts, teachers reported that they were spending as much as 10 minutes either at the start or end of class dealing with locking and unlocking the phones or engaging with students who were not following the policy. Those 10 minutes across the school year ends up being 30 hours of lost instructional time per class, and that does not include the time lost for students who did not follow the policy and access their phone across multiple periods. In addition to the lost instructional time, we were finding that smartphone usage during the school day was both leading to and intensifying peer conflicts. Throughout the school day, often at speeds that our support staff could not keep up with, students were videotaping one another, sending hurtful and inappropriate messages, and engaging in conflicts with students within our school and within other school communities. Our support staff, adept at building relationships with students, would be midway through a mediation session, supporting students in rebuilding and repairing a relationship, only to discover that while they were in the room with those students, other students were fanning the flames on social media and sending text messages, prolonging and deepening conflicts we were actively trying to resolve. We knew that we needed to take additional action. 2 years ago, we instituted a new policy, one that has had a profound impact on our school community. We continued to partner with Yonder, but for the last 2 years, we have been what is called an all-day Yonder school. English high school students are issued a Yonder pouch at the start of the school year. When they come in through the front door, they put their phone on airplane mode or turn it off and put their phone, earpods, and Apple Watches into their pouch, which they keep with them for the school day. When they leave the building for the day, they unlock their pouches and take them home. If at any point during the school day caregivers need to reach their students, they call our main office and we connect the student with their caregiver, either through the main office or through any of the staff phones on each floor of the building. If a student needs or wants to call home, they can do so in the office or on any of the staff phones on the floors. Students who break or lose their pouches are able to purchase a new pouch in the office, or they put their phones in a manila envelope at the front door. These are then alphabetized, and those students who have broken or lost their pouches, or who are found with their phones during the day, stand in line at the end of the day to pick up their phones. While this process generally takes about 5 minutes, it is 5 additional minutes without their phones, and has served as an incentive to many students not to break or lose their Yonder pouch. As this policy is uniformly enforced at the front door by a team comprised of administrators, deans of school cultures, social workers, and school counselors, the vast majority of students have followed the policy. When no one has their phone, student interest in phones decreases significantly. Certainly, students have tried to find creative ways to circumvent this policy, but we view this as a marathon, not a sprint, and slowly we figure out those holes and we plug them. Now, when a student is discovered with a phone, they generally shrug and hand over their phone and pick it up at the end of the day. No phones has become the new normal. We have been amazed at how much this policy has changed the day-to-day experience of teaching and learning at English. The first few days, we could not believe how loud the cafeteria seemed. Instead of sitting next to one another, scrolling, students were talking to each other. A number of students in those early days approached staff to say while they didn't like the policy, because of course they would rather have their phones, they were actually grateful for it because it was stretching them to be social and engage in new ways. Our teaching staff say we have turned back time to the days before smartphones, where there were far fewer distractions for students. This is resulting in better engagement and allowing staff to focus on lesson and skill development. As one of our teachers shared, in my class, where students are working on hands-on projects and collaborating closely, not having phones in the mix means we can dive right into the work without constant redirection. Students are more likely to ask each other for help, stay in problem-solving mode longer, and remain present during both instruction and lab time. It's hard to imagine running my classes without this level of consistent attention. In addition to helping create classroom conditions for critical thinking and deep learning, this policy allows us to create a safer environment for students and their emotional well-being. While we cannot control the messages, videos, or Snapchat messages that our students send one another in the hours before and after school, we can control their ability to engage in social media and communication practices during the school day. While it is only a quarter of their day, those 6 hours that students are with us under this policy may be the only 6 hours of the day that they are free from the influence of these messages and media. While this policy requires a significant amount of staff attention in the mornings, our support staff report it is well worth it for the reduction in student issues during the day and for the healthier social engagement that we are observing amongst our students as they have grown in their face-to-face communication. Our students amaze me every day. They are insightful and engaging, brilliant and creative, and they have so much to offer our city and our world. It is our responsibility as educators to create an environment in which those talented and brilliant students can develop to their full potential. Like teenagers across the country and the world, they have grown up swimming in a sea of social media and a world of instant access and gratification. They, like frankly most adults I know, love their phones and would prefer to be on them as much as possible. But it is our responsibility to provide them not with what they like, but with what we know they need. We are not perfect, and this is still a work in progress, but our work over the last few years has been a major step towards creating conditions that provide our students with opportunities to grow and develop and have 6 hours to quiet their minds, meet a new friend, and think more deeply. Thank you for the opportunity to participate in today's hearing. I look forward to answering any questions you might have.
Thank you, Principal Murphy, for your insight and for that timeline. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Denise Rory. I'm the director of the Office of Youth Leadership for Boston Public Schools, which includes the Boston Student Advisory Council. And so last November, when we began our school year program, the conversation of Yonder pouches was one that continued to come up amongst our student advocates and was an issue that students wanted to address. Not only did they want to address the abolishment of using Yonder pouches, I think on a deeper level they had a lot of questions about consistency and confusing policies. So although we do have a policy in Boston Public Schools, that policy, because of the autonomy that schools have, is implemented in many different ways, as we have heard from our student panelists. You have everything from Yonder pouches to phones being able to be out in certain environments in schools. And so our students had kind of a few main issues that they wanted to see addressed. And so they went forward with a petition that got over 1,200 signatures from Boston Public School students. And they were really looking for a consistent policy. Again, we know that not one size fits all, but to have it be so dramatic that some students are entering school, walking through metal detectors, being wanded down, and then having their phones taken away and put in a pouch felt very much like a prison and like an institution that students did not want to be a part of. And so having some consistency around cell phone policy was important to them. Students did also feel that it would be disruptive in a way that students were so focused on figuring out how to get around the policy that whether it was having duplicate phones, breaking Yonder pouches, that they felt like it was going to lead to even more of a distraction, even more distress in the school. There were also issues around privacy and safety, which many students have brought in up today as well. Their personal devices being locked away or taken away from them felt intrusive. And schools also have, they felt had a very serious lack of communication where things are going on in the building, students don't know about it, parents don't know about it, and so really are calling for a more comprehensive communication plan when it comes to emergencies and when it comes to situations in school versus learning about it secondhand through social media. And then there was also a concern around the financial aspect of a Yonder pouch or a system that needs to be put in place, whether it be that initial investment in buying, somewhere around 13,000 Yonder pouches for the high school age students we have in Boston, to students also feeling like, Dad, I haven't gone on a field trip this year, but we have money for Yonder pouches. And so I think there is the need for a balance where students feel like their education is being funded in a proper way. And then lastly, not only is this about cell phones in particular, but this is also about technology in general. And so if I'm not mistaken, the Study Act calls for the removal of all those devices. So students cannot bring their own MacBook to school to use in class, which you go to any college campus, that is what you are seeing. Students cannot use their smart watches or other aspects of technology. And so there needs to be an investment to ensure that if students are using school-issued technology, that it is first of all up to date, that it is second of all going with the times of technology. I mean, some of our students are still using Chromebooks that are very old and outdated. And so technology is moving forward and our students will be left behind even more so if their access to technology is not current with the times. Our students also had a town hall, which was a really great experience where there was a student moderator, 3 school leaders, some schools that have Yonder, some schools that don't, and then teachers. And I think this was really a beautiful way for our students to hear from the teachers in particular, because they are the ones on the front line dealing with these issues every single day. And so I know that this issue is near and dear to them as well, but it was just a beautiful combination of being able to hear where the young people were coming from, where administrators were coming from, and where teachers were coming from. And I do feel like our young people left that conversation with more understanding about this issue. And so I'll just say that, I think as difficult as it is to have these conversations, I think we're kind of being pushed in a direction where we need to figure out what the plan is, whether it is this ban, are we investing in Yonder pouches, and what is the kind of across the board message that the adults are sending to our students. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Principal Murphy and Director Rory, for being here. We're now going to turn it over to my colleagues for any questions, starting with the lead sponsors. Councilor Weber, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Principal Murphy, for an eye-opening tour of English High, and just seeing kids talking to each other in the hallways. I thought, with a 13-year-old and an 18-year-old at home, I wasn't really expecting to see, but I thought it was worthwhile for us to have a conversation about what this would look district-wide. In terms of, so Yonder pouches, do you have like a cost of what that, how much does it cost to get Yonder pouch? How many students are in English High?
Sure. I don't off the top of my head. I could provide that for the council after. We have 750 students. We buy a little bit of overage for those initial rounds of breakage. It has not been prohibitively expensive or something that has prevented us from providing other essential services to students. So there has not been, in the last few budget cycles when we've been engaged with Yonder for a number of years, there have not been decisions that we have to choose Yonder over something else. It's been something that has just been part of our school budget and has allowed us to continue to do all of the other things that we've planned to do.
Okay, yeah, and so do you think other schools would that work for other schools to pay out of their own budget, or how would that work?
I can't speak to each school does their own individual budget. There was an initial investment by the district for schools that were initially starting up with Yonder, where the district provided some sort of starter funds for everyone who was interested in it. Certainly all school leaders would welcome funding coming from somewhere else instead of their individual school budget. So we'd be happy to get behind that. But each school, my understanding is, would need to first decide that this was something that they wanted to do. It is more than a financial investment. It is a community investment, and so your staff needs to be willing to put in the time. And so, as I said, our support staff spends a little bit of extra time in the mornings at the front door. And at first, nobody was excited about additional time doing an administrative duty. And I think when folks realized that the investment paid off over the course of the day with the reduction in peer conflicts or peer issues, then that time investment felt well worth the additional time at the front door. And so I think in terms of investment from schools, the greater investment is the staff resources in terms of being willing to, be consistent about the implementation. And I would say, everyone wants things to be fair. Adolescents are particularly tuned into issues of fairness. And so the challenges that we have had with the cell phone policy in the past is that, well, you took my phone, but there's 3 people over there that have their phones. Why aren't you taking their phones? And then suddenly you've completely lost the classroom. This is done uniformly at the front door. We're clear. And students know, as students do, they're very creative, that if they figure out a way around it and they're found later, then it's going to go downstairs. And because it is uniform and consistent, which is what I think I hear students asking for, and predictable, it is something that, nobody likes to lose their phone, but they understand that this is what we're doing, and we're going to do it in a fair way. And so I think that's the investment. It's the people investment. Certainly, nothing is free, but and I can't speak to how individual other schools would budget it, but it has not been a barrier to us.
And so, have you looked at the Senate bill? This isn't a homework assignment. If you didn't do it, that's fine. But so in it requires like any plan to have. The plan has to include at least one method for parents and guardians of students to contact students during the day, including in an emergency. So do you have something like that in place?
So I have 3 children myself. I use the iPhone tracking feature to find out where they are in the summer, much to their chagrin. It's important for parents to know and to be able to reliably access their students. And so as part of this policy, I've been very clear with our main office staff, with anyone who carries either a cell phone or has a phone in their office, that if a caregiver calls, then we drop what we're doing and we're getting that student. If a student is where they are meant to be, it will take less than a minute to locate them and either direct them to the social worker's office on the 4th floor and transfer the phone call, or to call them down to the main office. We have not had issues And in fact, I had a number of parents come in the first few weeks that we were doing this and thank us and say that they wanted this for their house because they were so tired of trying to talk to their teenagers, at home who were using their phones. And so that has not been an issue, but it's critical, and it's critical for schools to be in regular communication with families and caregivers about, we've heard a couple of times that the concern has been that something is happening in the school and we don't know about it. BPS has a robust communications team, and so that should be something that the organization can manage, timely announcements to families about any emergency situations.
Okay, yeah, I don't know, are you timing? No.
We can, how about you ask for more and that will go?
No, that's okay. I think, I get just, sorry, Principal Murphy, this is how, in terms of, impacts of social media on the kids, I have an article over here which, one study found that students 14 to 17 were using, on average, an hour a school day, using their phones to look at TikTok, YouTube, and things like that. Can you just talk about what it looked like when, in terms of, did you see any impact on, not just talking to each other, obviously, but mental health? Were kids going into counseling, or there's cyberbullying? What did you see as the principal?
Certainly. I think I can't emphasize enough how damaging it was during the school day for students they would come to us, to show us a message that someone had sent us, or a Snapchat message that had some kind of subliminal, like a message that was supposed to be to them. And so it is pervasive. All of the brain science tells us that these sort of stress incidents, they trigger like a fight or flight reflex, and it makes it very difficult for there to be learning. You can't focus if you're preoccupied with a message that you just got, and then there's a group chat that's then going and sending. And this was taking up a significant amount of time during the school day, and then preventing us from providing sort of the regular counseling services that students may have just been entitled to as part of their IEP or other services. And so the social work team and support team was finding that they were constantly running to sort of put out fires that were being started by social media that were causing incidents during the school day. And instead of, that sort of responsive work, we're able to sort of proactively plan stress and anxiety groups, because there's more breathing time during the school day, because you're not constantly responding to what new message someone has seen online. And that has made a huge difference in our ability to provide mental health services, which are needed sort of besides this. And so we need to be able to be responsive to those needs. And so it's important to have that sort of 6-hour break in input of social media and messages.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I'd just like to just point out that I think there's an article in the New Yorker about how this is an issue for kids, but it's also, part of the reason why we talk about it so much is because it's also an issue for adults. Mm-hmm. I think my colleagues, I'm sure a lot of the students here have had people say mean things about them on social media. Anyone? No? Well, I think a lot of us have had that on social media. I don't know who, not except for Rusi, Louis, Jen. Everyone just says really nice things, but in terms of, I think I don't know who's in first place, but Councilor Mejia probably has like 11,000 Instagram followers or something like that, I think. And so between the two of us, we've got about 11,004. And but even with my 4 followers, we deal with this all the time. At least I'm just I think you'll see a lot of this, and it's something that we all have to deal with. And certainly, I think to Ms. Mohammed's point about teachers, getting teachers off their phones too would be great. Mm-hmm. But to see what we can do to help kids learning in school, I think that's the focus of this. So I think we feel their pain, especially the elected officials, because a lot of people throw a lot of stuff at us all the time. Mm-hmm. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Weber. We're now going to go to Councilor Pepan. And just a reminder, we do have another panel after this, and there's another hearing that's starting at 2. So Just keep your speed it up, yeah. I want to be mindful that we have amazing panelists with us here today. Councilor Pepen, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'm proud to be one of Councilor Weber's 4 followers.
Why did you say that?
No, but seriously, thank you for being here. Thank you for the perspective that you bring. Thank you for the work that you do with our students. I think there's nothing more valuable than working with our young population here in the city. My question is about the way that you've been able to track the success or just the impact of taking away the cell phones through the pouch system at English High School. I want to know, have you seen difference in academics, difference in culture? Do your teachers provide some sort of review? Do the students provide some sort of review? I would like to just know that, is there any tracking mechanism of how it has impacted your school?
That's a great question. So our teachers have uniformly support the policy, have spoken at great length about how they want to make sure we keep the policy. Anytime that we come up in our school site council meetings, which is the sort of governing body of the school, there is uniform support among teachers for it. BPS does some surveys. One of the things we saw most recently in our school data was an increase in the sense of belonging. That's one of the indicators, which is, I think, a good indicator. I think we haven't formally surveyed students. I can tell you they were going to say that it's Aggie, they don't like it. But at the same time, I think they understand it as something that is like vegetables or, calculus, probably not something you might necessarily want to do, but that it is good for you. So I think, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm curious to see if we were to ask the students themselves, throughout the years, how they've been impacted by this. So it would be interesting to see. If you ever do that, let us know.
Yes.
We'd love to, especially
Oh,
since...
and Wandel, who testified earlier, is an English high school student, and while we were doing this, he started his own experiment in the lunchroom where they put little tea light candles and had a formal lunch because suddenly there was space to do this, and he called it one of his social experiment. And so I think part of that was from the cell phone work, thinking about what other ways can we experiment with. And they wore suits to the cafeteria and had tea lights. And so I think, it is something we could be and probably should be collecting and tracking data on. I think there have been sort of a decrease when you talk to our deans in terms of the extent of the peer conflicts, and the sort of peer conflicts that then result in physical altercations has decreased significantly. And students will say that it's because they don't have their phones. And so they are less interested in engaging in that sort of conflict, sadly, if they're not going to videotape it. And so that has been something that students have articulated on numerous occasions to us.
Okay. No, I'm thankful that this practice has been put in place, at least in such a big school like English High School. Mm-hmm. And I know that it's a little outside of my district, but with the permission of Councilor Weber, I'd love to visit and just get that experience too. Mm-hmm. So hopefully we could somehow set that up, Councilor Weber. That would be great. But just thank you for the work you all do. Thank you for, again, your testimony. That's it.
Awesome. Thank you, Councilor Pepen. Councilor Mejia, you have the floor.
Yes. And I will verify, I do have 11,000 followers on Instagram. You can follow me at Julia for Boston, so I can get some more. But I also want to acknowledge something that Councilor Weber mentioned. I had close to 14,000 followers on Twitter, and I stopped using that platform because of how toxic and how mean trolls are in that space. And so I just want to acknowledge that even though social media can be a good information sharing platform, and even though I had more followers there, I opt not to engage in that platform anymore just because it's so toxic. Mm-hmm. And so the social and emotional and mental impact that it has, even though we are adults, it is very troubling the way that people have used social media to attack elected officials, and also how people use social media to attack people, period. So I think that there is something to be said there about the use of social media, whether it's good or bad. I left that platform and only sporadically share things there when need be, just because it's so toxic. So just want to acknowledge that. And so, I really love the balanced perspective here. And Denise, I just really want to just acknowledge how you brought the youth voice into this, because oftentimes these decisions that we're making are going to impact their day-to-day lives. And so to bring them into the space and their concerns here is really valid as we continue to have these conversations. And so thank you for doing that. As an adult who has children, I'm sure you know how difficult it is for you to even be here, because I feel the pain right now. My daughter utilizes her phone to text me about Cash App, send her Ubers. I had to get off of Life 360 just because then she was tracking my whereabouts. It's so crazy, right? And so I just want to acknowledge that technology has made our lives easier and also harder. Mm-hmm. And I am very curious about, and I haven't heard from, even though we are parents, the three of us here on this panel right now, but we the role that parents play in this conversation, right? Because we can't expect government, we can't expect our schools and our educators to be everything to everybody at all times. It's just unrealistic. And I'm just curious, what role have you all seen parents play in this dialogue? And what role and what words of encouragement and advice will you have for parents who are tuning in about what they can do at home to help support this conversation?
Yeah, I'm sure Caitlin deals with parents quite a bit more than I do, but I will say that in our conversations with the BSAC young people and with their parents, there is definitely resistance from parents, and I think that stems from a lack of trust and a lack of communication with some of our schools and with some of those institutions that unfortunately they feel as though they won't be communicated with. And it sounds like you have a great system at English High for students to get, in touch with parents and for vice versa. But I'm not sure that would unfortunately be the case at all of our schools. And I think anecdotally you would hear from students that they feel that they don't have the autonomy to, ask to go to the bathroom or ask for a period product. Would they have the autonomy to ask to use the phone to contact a parent? And so I think there are some great procedures put in place at English. I can't say that all of our schools have those, and I think that if we spoke to students, we would definitely hear a different perspective about whether or not they feel that they are able to necessarily ask for all of the things that they need, and then in turn our parents feel like perhaps my student isn't getting what they need or doesn't have access to what they need, and so they feel definitely like I need to be able to have constant contact with my student. I personally try to, I have a 14-year-old. I personally try to make sure that we have time without the phones, whether it's going for a walk, during dinner, certain times of the day that we're all not on our phone. But it's definitely a battle. And I don't think, even in BSAC, we have our battles as well. But I think if you walk into our space on any given day, majority of our students are interacting with each other. Majority of our students we are very loud. We are very boisterous. I think the Bowling building might be tired of us at some point. But our students are interacting. And so I don't want to paint the picture that students are just so disconnected from the world, because there are many instances where even if we don't have a Yonder system in place or we don't have a phone system in place, that you can see students being young people. And if you came to our basketball tournament on Friday, you would have seen hundreds of students not on their phone, just hanging out at the park, engaging in ball, dancing, performing, and having a good time. And so I think sometimes we don't always give young people the credit that they deserve when it comes to them managing a world that we did not grow up in. We did not have
this access the way that they do. And so I think many of them carry themselves in a very good way and try to be conscientious about it. Thank you. Do you want to say something?
Sure. I think if we're going to implement policies like this that ask people to do something that feels uncomfortable and a little bit scary, then as administrators, we have a responsibility to create the conditions for that to feel like as okay as possible. And so we recognize that English, this is a big ask for folks. And so it's important that the teachers are not on their phones. It's important that if a parent calls, whatever you're doing, you stop and get the student. It's important if a student needs to speak to their family that we make sure that that's happening and that we make sure that there is a feeling that you can do that, because that's how we get to do this thing that we know is really good for you. And I think, because that's all that we can control is these 6 hours. I think in my own life, as a parent, it's easier to give my 8-year-old the iPad when I have work to do, but that's not good for her. And I'm fighting with my high school age son about his summer reading that he hasn't started, and realizing that, like, when is the last time he saw me read a book? And so I've been trying to adjust my own practices. I think there's work that all of us have to do as parents, because it's become so easy to just let the devices sort of, run the kids while we're all tied up doing. It allows us to do so many things at once, right? But as a parent myself, I think I would say, think about, what are the technology practices that you're modeling for your students? Like, how often are they seeing you on your phone or your device versus doing something else? Because we all grew up with watching our parents do other things. And so I think, they're sort of modeling what we're doing, and, I can only control what happens during the school day, but I know myself as a parent, it's a huge challenge to monitor my own use.
I appreciate that. I know that we have limited time, and my colleagues have questions too. Could I get one more question in, Chair? Thank you. And so I appreciate that. I think that as a parent, like, this is one of the things that I'm struggling with the most in terms of kind of like, how do I balance? Because to your point, like, yeah, I have 101 things to do. I'm a single mom at that, so I'm the entertainment. I'm the one who has to carry it all. Yeah. And so it's easier for me to allow my daughter to, do what she needs to do on her Snapchat. And I don't even have access to it, so I find out what she's doing on Snapchat through my cousin, through my other siblings that have access to their kids' information. And so, like, there's a wall of, like, there's a barrier there in terms of us being able to monitor our kids' social media activities. And I want to name that as something that I think is important for us to acknowledge. I think that, Wendell, the idea of utilizing the cafeteria for socializing, I think there's something beautiful about this, and I think what I'm looking for, and I would love to hear from the district perspective, is really more consistency around, like, all schools, all times. This is going to be the blanket. This is how we're going to deal with our cell phone usage, because what happens that I see is that certain schools have more capacity and more resources and more discipline than others, right? And then so that creates the culture of the digital divide, if you will. Mm-hmm. So I have two questions in one. One is, how are we grappling with the digital divide in terms of, like, making sure that we're just being as competitive as other school districts when they're allowed their students to utilize cell phones because they have allegedly more discipline? Mm-hmm. So I'd love to hear that. And then the second part of this question is, for me, I'm curious about the social interaction piece of it. I think Wendell's idea of, now I want everybody to do this. Like, can we do a challenge across the district where it's a digital detox challenge, where we take maybe 4 or 5 high schools and put them to the test to see what it would look like if we spent a whole week dedicated to being digitally conscious. Mm-hmm. Is that something that the district can do and would be willing to take on a digital challenge, a week of digital detoxing?
assume so.
I cannot commit to that, but I cannot commit to that. But I mean, I do think that, like, you know, when you visit our schools and you see, you know, the work that our school psychologists are doing, our school social workers are doing, whether it's like the small group lunchtime, a lot of them do that. A lot of our schools have various affinity spaces for students that do give them that kind of one-on-one time, especially around the mental health support. I do think that, like, that's a super important and critical part. I love hearing students lead that. And I do think there are spaces where that's happening in school. Perhaps it's not like dressed in a suit with a tea light at the lunch table, but you know, there are students running recycling club and student government and you know, various programs at different schools that they do find that one-on-one time. They do find that time to build with each other. They do find that time to practice a step or practice a dance. And so those small things, I don't want them to go unacknowledged, right? Because there are times where our students, and many students are having that social interaction. I mean, even when students are making TikToks together, right, there is a level of social interaction going on there. But I think with grappling with the digital divide, I think that's a really tough question to kind of try to tackle. But in my experience of seeing schools that don't necessarily have cell phone policies per se, I think it's around the expectation, the community, and the culture of the school, and really focusing on building that trust and building that community, which it sounds like Caitlin is doing a great job doing that. But if students don't feel welcome, don't feel trust, don't feel connected to their school community, there is always going to be that struggle to take a phone or to know that the people in that building really have your best interests at heart if they don't genuinely feel that. And so I'm not answering your question around the digital divide because I don't know, but I do know that when schools build trust, build safe and welcoming environments, or whether it be a youth program as well, the expectation of students is going to be there and they're going to rise to the expectation.
I think in terms of the digital divide question, I actually think having this policy makes our students more competitive with other districts. Not having the cell phones doesn't mean we have no technology. Certainly we have a lot of technology that is aligned with the standards. So we have the only legal and protective services pathway in the district. So our students have a 911 call simulator. And so students are engaging with that technology, or they're engaging with a suite of technology platforms in our health assisting program. The teacher who I quoted from teaches our programming and web design class. And so I think reducing the access to cell phones during the day and providing access to appropriate kinds of technology that helps to engage our students and make them competitive. I think actually the phone policy helps because the students are free to concentrate on those appropriate technologies. And all of our students have Chromebooks. We just refreshed our Chromebooks. One of the learnings, I think, just in terms of how do I find out when my practice is, or how do I find out, is that, I mean, students all have email, but they just weren't accessing it. And so one of the things that our students learn to do is to make sure you're checking your email account, you know, once or twice a day using the school Chromebook and communicating through that platform, which is an easy way to find out if practice time has changed or if something else is going on. And we found that students were relying heavily on group text and group chats instead of using emails, which is something that as they get closer to senior year, they realize that they really need to be familiar with using email on a regular basis for colleges and for internships and things like that. So I think in some ways a consistent policy actually can help to bridge that digital divide. But it's something important really for people to be mindful of. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Mejia. Council President Lijen, you have the floor.
Thank you, and thank you for your testimony and for the work that you've been doing. Actually, when I was out, I talked to one of my interns who is now in college, and she said that exact thing. She said, you know, we could find information about practice and room changes, all of that via email, and we all had our Chromebook, so that as an alternative to being on the phones. I think Councilor Mejia asked in part the question that I had in terms of like parents' reaction and response. I don't know if there's anything else you'd like to elaborate, but that's what I'm curious about, because I'm thinking when we were growing up, right? Your parents would leave you a message on the kitchen table like, take the meat out of the freezer, right? Mm-hmm. And like maybe now that's something that they're trying to text their kids, but maybe it's something that can wait till the end of the day. So just more information about parent feedback.
Sure. I think there was some anxiety initially, and then I think once parents realized that, we'll take the message about the meat and, pass it on to the student. There's no message that's too minor because we've removed that ability, and so we have to be flexible then. If your regular way of communicating and you have to get a message right away, we will get the student the message. And I think that because we've been responsive in that way, I think parents have been appreciative. And again, I think as we've had parent meetings related to, peer conflicts and things, it has come up repeatedly that the parents are happy that the students are not engaging with each other during the school day. And so by and large, the response of parents has been positive. I've met with a number of parents who were concerned about the question of what do I do during an emergency. And, we've reiterated that, if you've ever tried to give a teenager multi-step directions while they have their phone in their hands, like that's why the laundry didn't get put away or the meat never got out of the refrigerator because they didn't actually listen to what you were saying. And so we've walked parents through, imagine there's a real emergency and I'm trying to give your student a direction about where to go, and they're looking at their phone and not following the instructions of the God forbid that there had to be some kind of first responders or something.
Right.
And so most parents, so long as we've sat down with them and explained to them what our emergency plans and protocols are, they have been satisfied with that. And I think the key is the consistent communication and being responsive to parents in that way.
Well, thank you. Oh, Denise.
Yeah, I really like how Sociedad Latina incorporated the parents in their policy, right? Like making sure that there was like either a phone call or a personal touch point from like an adult of the program to like outline the expectations. And I know in the toolkit that the district attorney's office created, there's also kind of like community guidelines, right? Because again, it's 6 hours of the day. There's a lot of hours outside of that that fuel the fire for arguments or fights or gossip or other things like that carry into the school day as well. And so I think like beyond, yes, our students are a big part of it, but there needs to be a bigger community commitment from the adults across the board that we are going to carry ourselves in the same way, and we're going to do the same things that we say that we want our young people to do.
Yeah, I think that was a beautiful reflection in terms of like, what are we doing? So I look forward to visiting English and seeing it alongside some district counselors and your district counselor. Appreciate it. Councilor Mejia gave her a shout out, so Rootsy for Boston on social media. But honestly, I will say though, the number of kids and students who reach out to me about an issue that they're having with their family and this is a question for another day, but like the number of people who reach out to my office for constituent services via social media DM, the number of our students, it's really, really high. And I think that's like, training people on email, I think is important, but it is important to know that that is a vehicle for people to be able to reach out to their elected representatives. And that now I'm at the point, it's like, okay, can you please email me this concern, both because it's better for my office to track via email, but also as a way of helping people understand that like that's probably the better way than social media. So I do think that there's like a training aspect also in terms of how you communicate, and also in terms of like teaching us what's urgent, because we sort of have failed to understand and conflated everything as urgent because we have these phones in our hands when not everything is urgent. So thank you, and thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Council President. Councilor Worrell.
Thank you, Chair, and I think I'm going to give Council Weber a boost in his followers, so please go follow Councilor Weber at Ben for District 6. Let's get his followers up. You can also follow me to Vote Worrell. But a few questions I have for you is, you talked about making sure that all of our equipment is upgraded. Do we know what that would take? Is there like an assessment that is done by school to see if their technology is outdated? And then can we quantify that in terms of like a dollar amount?
So OIIT would be the department that manages that, and so I believe the Chromebooks are on a set review. So each school has a technology coordinator, and in the spring, all of the technology coordinators were given. This is probably more detailed. We're given a way to look through all the Chromebooks that you have in stock, and to start to pull out the ones that sort of too old to update, and then the district replenishes those.
So that's happening on a yearly basis?
Yes.
Awesome, that's good to know. And I can check in with the district to see if that's happening at all the schools?
Yeah, you would have to check in with them about like the schools, like if the school, who the technology coordinator is at the school, how are they going through the Chromebooks, and then what is the transaction of, hey, we need 14 more, or whatever the case may be. I know that from Caitlin's comments that students at English have Chromebooks, but I think it varies school to school. Like if their Chromebook breaks, what's the process to get it fixed? How long does it take? Do they get a replacement? And when was the last time we got like newer Chromebooks?
Got it. And everything that's on your phone is on your Chromebook or on your computer. So I do agree with some my colleagues when they say it's showing our students, our parents that you can access a lot of the same tools on your Chromebook. Like you could start a Google chat, right, with a bunch of your friends to talk about the BSAC event that might have got rescheduled or at a different location. So I do believe trying to get them to the computer or the Chromebook is something that I would like to see a little bit more of. But then the caregivers, to your point, we only have our students for 6 hours a day, so kind of teaching our caregivers the best practices for social media. I think the best practice is not buying them a cell phone sometimes, but if they are going to have a cell phone, just kind of best practices. So kind of seeing some communication coming out of BPS on that to help our caregivers help us on best practices for social media. And I think the last, or even the phone, I think the last thing I would say is, let me take a look at my notes. I just want to also, you brought up something very important that we don't say oftentimes. Like our students and our young people are navigating a world that we have never had to navigate as a teenager. So I just want to give them a shout out in working with us on navigating so much more pressure and so much more technology that can be harmful at times. So I just want to say that out loud and just acknowledge that for our students. And no further questions, but thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Councilor Worrell, and thank you to our panelists. Really appreciate you answering our questions and providing that feedback. So I will dismiss you both, and we're going to take some public testimony. We're going to take 4 public testimony, and then I'm going to invite the last panel down with us. So for public testimony, we have Imani. We have Imani Villar, Kevin Lewis, Munira Saeed, and Joseph Pite. Yep, you can just state your name, your affiliation, and then you have 2 minutes for your public testimony. I appreciate you being here.
Good morning. My name is Imani Villar. I'm a rising junior at Boston Latin School, and I'm here on behalf of the Boston Student Advisory Council. I believe students should be allowed to have their phones in school, not just for convenience, but because it's an opportunity to teach responsibility in the digital age. Phones aren't going away. Instead of banning them, schools should guide students on how to use them wisely. Just like we teach safe driving before handing over the keys, we should be teaching students how to manage screen time, avoid distractions, use phones for research, and stay safe online. Responsible phone use is a life skill. By incorporating phones into a learning environment with clear boundaries, we prepare students for the real world where self-control, digital literacy, and balance are essential. Schools shouldn't just block the tech. They should teach how to use it right. Again, my name is Imani. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, members of City Hall. My name is Kevin Lewis. I am a rising junior at the John D. O'Brien, and I'm representing the Boston Student Advisory Council. I'm here to speak against banning phones in schools. Phones are not just social media. They're tools for learning, safety, and connection. For many students, they provide translation, research, and a lifeline in emergencies. A ban doesn't just solve distraction, it just hides it. In the real world, like college, work, and everyday life, phones are everywhere. Taking them away in school doesn't prepare students, it puts them at a disadvantage. Schools should teach responsibility, not avoidance. With clear rules, we can show students how to manage technology wisely, a skill that they'll use long after graduation. Don't take away the chance for students to prove that they can be responsible. Teach them how, because the world won't ban phones, and neither should we. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Munir Saeed. I'm a rising sophomore at Boston Land Academy and representing the Boston Student Advisory Council. I'm here to speak against a proposed statewide bill banning student cell phone use in all public schools from bell to bell. Phones can be a distraction, but banning them entirely during non-instructional time ignores real issues and creates new ones. This bill would take away a tool that helps us stay connected, informed, and safe. Today, phones are more than entertainment. We use them to contact families during emergencies, access classwork and grades, check in with trusted people for mental health, and stay safe while commuting. This bill's expectations for educational youth, health needs, and IEPs don't go far enough. Not every need comes with formal documentation, and locking phones in pouches or lockers only adds to cost and stress. This policy also assumes that all schools are the same, when urban, suburban, and rural schools face very different realities. In urban schools like mine, many students travel long distances through unsafe areas. In suburban schools, students may face intense academic pressure and rely on phones to connect with parents, therapists, or resources. In rural areas, limited internet and long commutes means students often need phones for learning and connection. Instead of spending all this money on enforcement systems, we should be investing in replacing outdated textbooks, improving school buildings, and expanding sports and arts, and strengthening mental health services. This bill sends the message that students can't be trusted. Trust and responsibility goes both ways. Give us the structure, the support, and the chance to show that we can use our tools responsibly. And to make decisions for us should be made with us, and our voices belong in our future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jalen. I reside in Boston, and
my name is Joseph, and I'm from Dorchester.
And we both are here to represent Friends of the Children and talk about the way social media affects body image in the youth. We believe it contributes to unrealistic standards that can lead to bullying, eating disorders, and depression. According to the Boston Children's Hospital Digital Wellness Center, 46% of U.S. teens say that social media affects their self-image negatively. The negativity prevalent in social media leads to many individuals to feel that they do not measure up in terms of appearance. This can create a vicious cycle as they will seek to feel better about themselves and gain more weight and feel more worse, leading to eat more in response. The issue severely impacts young impressionable girls. My little sister has approached me multiple times expressing that she feels bad about her appearance and how sometimes it isn't good enough for some people.
I think nationally, social media companies should stop showing teenagers fitness and weight loss content. I think this content is bad for them because this can lead them to having negative thoughts about body image issues. I believe algorithms should be regulated to avoid showing teenagers these images and videos. I want Boston City Council to fund more programming around body acceptance and positive body image for teenagers. I believe our community needs this programming to help our peers feel confident about themselves. And I also am pushing City Council to pass a resolution for social media companies to stop showing fitness and weight loss content to these teenagers as it has negative impacts on their bodies.
Social media platforms like TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and Snapchat should stop showing certain harmful content to young users to prevent the development of issues that could be detrimental to their mental health in the long run. I would advocate for the inclusion of disclaimers on videos where individuals use to alter their appearance. I urge all city council members to work with state representatives to establish laws that protect the youth from body dysmorphia disorders and related issues. Collectively, we can strive to rid not just our city, but our nation of this perversive problem that affects so many young people today. Thank you for your attention and to this important issue.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you both being here and testifying. We're now going to invite our third panel up. We have with us David Monahan, Campaign Director for Fair Play, Dr. David Bickham, Research Scientist in Adolescents and Young Adult Medicine Research and Digital Wellness Lab at Boston Children's Hospital, and an instructor of pediatrics at Harvard Medical School. And then we have the amazing Alex Oliver Davila, the Executive Director of Sociedad Latina. So as you all come here, we're gonna have you all introduce yourselves, give opening remarks, and then we'll turn it over for my colleagues for questions. I appreciate you all being here. Thank you. Oh, it's been a long hearing, so I know. Floor is yours.
Good afternoon. Thank you to all the young people who came out today. I know many of you are leaving. I appreciate you staying for so long. Thank you to all the city councilors, Councilor Santana, Councilor Weber, Councilor Pepin, Councilor Durkin, and all of the other councilors also who joined us when we came to do a run-through. My name is Alexandra Oliver Davila, and I am the Executive Director of Sociedad Latina, which is located in Roxbury. We are an out-of-school time program. We focus on work readiness, academic support, civic engagement, and arts and culture. And we work with middle school through high school, through post-secondary, with students from Boston Public Schools. Do you want me to keep going or into my?
However you want.
Okay, all right.
That's
So
fine, thank you.
Beautiful. All right, so thank you. I wanted to just touch base a little bit. I do have a presentation that I provided, so it might be boring to just stare at me. You can look at the presentation and follow along if you would like to. But before I talk about our Teens and Technology campaign, I just wanted to share a little bit about some of our previous work because I think it's really important. Young people have consistently been at the forefront of all of our campaigns, driving significant change in public health. And this is a public health issue that we're talking about today. For instance, during the peak of youth tobacco use, Sociedad Latina youth conducted surveys comparing unhealthy storefront ads in Boston neighborhoods to those in suburban areas. And angered by their findings, they took action, leading to a policy where Boston storefronts can now display no more than 33% of unhealthy advertisements in their windows or be fined. Before the city of Boston even began its public education efforts on the harms of sugar-sweetened beverages, our young people were actively negotiating with Longwood Medical Area hospitals to have these drinks removed as an option from patient menus. Additionally, our young people successfully advocated for the placement of salad bars in Boston public high schools, ensuring that students have access to fresh and healthy food options. These examples underscore the critical role young people play in public health. They identified issues detrimental to their well-being and proactively took action on them. We, as an organization, had concerns about cell phone and social media use before the pandemic. In a post-pandemic anonymous survey, Sociedad Latina youth overwhelmingly shared their most pressing concerns, which were mental health, and mental health specifically related to social media and cyberbullying. This led to the creation of a wellness department in our organization that focuses on youth check-ins and integrating wellness activities into all programs. We also created a youth wellness committee and implemented happiness classes and an anti-bullying curriculum. Understanding that young people respond best when they feel they have autonomy and agency, Our organization-wide initiative called Teens in Technology, Thriving in a Digital World, focuses on providing youth with information on how to use technology wisely and how to protect their digital mental health. In our original internal survey, youth also said that they wanted to learn more about how social media affects their mental health. Our Youth Wellness Committee co-created and analyzed a survey with Tufts Tisch Community Research Center, and I would like to thank the director, Lane Donnelly, and August Smith, who partnered with us on this survey. The survey, called Social Media and Your Well-Being, looks at the relationship of social media use and well-being among youth of color ages 14 to 19, including time spent on social media platforms, reasons social media is used, and parent-caregiver involvement with their teens' social media experience. We utilize the EPOC measurement for adolescent well-being, which assesses 5 characteristics that foster well-being, and those are perseverance, engagement, optimism, connectedness, and happiness. Although this is a small sample based on 44 responses from our young people in our programs, it is a characteristic sample of a subset of Boston Public School students, most notably English learners and youth of color. And the results are in the package, and you can see all the different data points. I'm only going to share a couple. So we found that 25% of youth were on their phones for 6 to 8 hours a day. 22% of youth were on their phone for more than 8 hours a day. That's effectively more than 50% of our young people on the phone for a significant amount of time during the day. Also, 84% of youth were using their phones during the school day, 84% during the school day. We found that the EPOC well-being scores decreased when youth spent long hours on social media and used their phones during the school day, at mealtimes, at bedtime, with family and friends, and to reduce boredom and distract themselves from their feelings. We found that only 30% of parents and caregivers had rules around social media use and screen time, and that EPOC well-being scores actually increased when parents and caregivers established rules around social media. Sorry, I have a lot of papers. As you heard today, our young people testifying about some of the recommendations. So they have been testifying all year at Boston Public School Committee meetings, and made the following recommendations, which have been touched upon here today, which is to implement a K-12 digital citizen curriculum, to develop a certification program for high school students before introducing ChatGPT and other AI tools, to offer classes to parents and caregivers on how screen time and social media affect students, to establish an external family and technology committee that includes students, families, and stakeholders to address the opportunities and challenges of AI and other technology. I believe in supporting young people's independence and autonomy is important. This is my career, what I've done my entire career. However, the reality is that cell phones and social media are addictive, and as we heard today, all of us can admit that we all struggle, including myself, around cell phones and social media. The frontal cortex, which is essential for self-control, delay of gratification, and resistance to temptation, is not up to full capacity until the mid-20s. The draw of constantly checking your phone, social media, and group chats is real. Even when students want to focus on what's happening in the classroom or what's happening in front of them in real life, it can be next to impossible because of the addictive design. Research suggests that cell phones and social media are negatively impacting young people's social skills, ability to focus, memory, critical thinking, and executive function skills. The instant gratification related to getting likes, notifications, and comments triggers the release of dopamine in the brain, similar to playing slot machines. The high potential for addiction cannot be overstated. And as you are all aware, we are in the worst youth mental health crisis in our nation's history. Cell phone and social media can further exacerbate mental health issues by causing anxiety, sleep disruption, unhealthy comparison, and cyberbullying. But our students are not to blame for being drawn in. They are growing up in an environment that has been engineered by big tech to keep them addicted. And I think that this hearing represents an opportunity to engage students and put their mental, social, physical, and academic health first. However, a phone-free school policy has to be done in conjunction with community building and connection. Students want more belonging and connection with their peers and school community. And I would hope that the enactment of a policy, a phone-free, device-free environment, that there will be student voice to provide guidance on its implementation. I think BPS has to make a firm decision, and it has to be in writing, and it has to be implemented consistently. What we found from our young people, we did a survey, and we found that it was based on teacher, based on classroom to classroom, what was happening with cell phones. I think that is really unfair. When we cannot talk about a digital divide of devices anymore. The digital divide is now that youth of color spend more time on cell phones and social media than their white counterparts. And I think that is a dangerous place to be. It is very hypocritical when we look at big tech CEOs. They all send their children to schools that are device-free, and we are going to be left behind. The brain cannot function. These policies of being able to take your phone in and out does not help you to actually, you need to have time in your brain to process and learn information. There's so much research around this. So lastly, I'll just say, the teacher piece is really important. It cannot just be the students not using their cell phones. Teachers also need to role model, and parents, we all need to be talking with our young people. I am a parent of a teenager, and trust me, I struggle every single day. It's a constant conversation. I just want to throw that cell phone in the toilet and flush it and never see it again. But I know that that's my responsibility, and I have to keep talking to my teenager about it. And lastly, to say that I think that our young people, they deserve to be in a place that is free from devices, where they can concentrate, where they can engage, where they can talk to other people and build belonging and build a sense of community and build the social skills that are being taken away through this technology. Thank you so much for letting me ramble. I appreciate it.
Good afternoon. I'm David Monahan, Campaign Director at Fair Play. We're a national nonprofit organization that works to enhance children's well-being by eliminating the exploitative and harmful business practices of marketers and big tech. Fair Play's office and our roots are here in Boston. I'm also a former Assistant Attorney General. I worked for 15 years in the Consumer Protection Division of the Massachusetts Office of the Attorney General. And I'm a father of 2 students in public school in Massachusetts. I thank the committee for holding this important hearing, for giving me the opportunity to testify, most importantly for reaching out to Boston families and students to hear their voices on these urgent issues. I'm inspired by the fact that so many young people have been in this room today and have spoken so eloquently about their perspectives, and the fact that we have some differing perspectives certainly means that there's work to do, but to me, that's a really good sign that there's fertile ground, that so many people care and so many people have ideas, that there is fertile ground for working towards solutions. At Fair Play, we've collaborated over the past year with educators and families across the U.S. and Canada who recognize the urgent problem of smartphones in schools that we've been discussing today. The lure of phones and social media creates a distraction that impedes learning. Students are not paying attention. Teachers are not free to teach because they're using time to implore students to put their phones away. And school is not just about education, it's also about social, emotional development. And as we've heard today, in many schools, students are not engaged in class. They're also ignoring one another in the hallways and the lunchroom, with heads buried in screens. And hours a day on social media during school means hours of exposure to harms like bullying, sexual predators, and content that promotes suicide, self-harm, eating disorders, drugs, and dangerous challenges. Like many of you, we were pleased on July 31st when the Massachusetts Senate voted overwhelmingly in favor of a law that would remove phones from Massachusetts schools from the first bell in the morning until the last bell in the afternoon. And if the House approves this measure, and it's signed by Governor Healy, Massachusetts will join 18 states and our good friends in the District of Columbia in passing strong phone rules that will remove phones from schools. We hope that will happen because a bell-to-bell phones locked and away policy can transform Boston schools, as we heard this morning from Principal Murphy, into places of greater learning, engagement, and fun. And at Fair Play, we've seen that time and time again. Engagement will flourish. Now, earlier this year, Fair Play and our partners at another nonprofit, the Phone Free Schools Movement, issued a letter In my written testimony, there's a link to this letter, but I've also provided copies for the counselors. It's signed by more than 35 organizations that advocate for children and more than 35 experts in children's development and well-being. And it calls on schools to enact robust bell-to-bell phone-free school policies. It was signed by organizations like the American Federation of Teachers and the National Education Association, and experts like Jonathan Haidt and Sherry Turkle. And as stated in this letter, we owe it to our youth to give them 7 hours a day, and I guess our math is a little different than what we've heard today, about 6 hours, let's call it 6.5 hours a day, free from the distractions and dangers of phones and social media. We've also created free toolkits, and there's a link in my testimony where folks can get these free toolkits. There's one for ambassadors, one for administrators. And these highlight the urgency of the problem and also would give solutions to what everyone has recommended today about getting buy-in, about talking to the community, what works in our school, how do we make young people and families understand why we're doing this. This toolkit can help you to implement phone-free schools in a way that will effectively demonstrate to students and families this is not a punishment, but a great opportunity that we think you will be thankful for once you see how school is transformed for the better. And that's a point I'd like to emphasize as I get close to concluding. We totally understand young people asking, why are you taking my phone away? Why can't I have it in between classes? What did I do wrong? Is this a punishment? Or as we've heard very eloquently today, shouldn't you give me the chance to build discipline, show you that I have self-control? Well, I want to say to the students who were here today, that's a great suggestion. You made a great point, and we need to have conversations with you about what the point of this is. But you know, I agree 1,000%. We need digital literacy programs. We need to teach you to use that phone in a safe way when you get home in the evening. But in order to return engagement in schools, we would respectfully say we need to take the phones away from bell to bell. You know, we don't say to young people, we want you to build up discipline, so we're going to hand you this pack of cigarettes and show us that you understand how dangerous it is and throw it in the toilet. No, we say, young people can't get cigarettes. And we say to all of us, you need to have a seatbelt when you're driving a car in order to keep you safe. Well, we would suggest that we need to get the phones out of schools from bell to bell to increase engagement. And we can also teach young people about why we're doing that. And really frame to them that this is not a punishment, it's about a gift, giving back engagement in schools. We've had the privilege of meeting students all over the country who were hesitant at first, but then a few months in, they say taking phones out of schools was the best thing that ever happened. We respectfully urge the committee to act to promote learning environments in Boston schools that support healthy development and academic success, and Fair Play stands ready to assist in the process for schools ready to transition to being phone-free. Thank you.
Hello, my name is David Bickham. I'm the research director at the Digital Wellness Lab at Boston Children's Hospital. I'm also the proud parent of two BPS kids, 12 and 13-year-old, who have been in BPS since they've been 3 and 4 years old, respectively. I'm also the 5th follower of Councilman Weber on Instagram, so proud member there as well. And I wanted to thank you all for having me and congratulate you on an absolutely wonderful event, so well attended and such a breadth and a wide variety of important viewpoints and positions. A lot of what I'm going to say today really has already been said. I'm going to present you with some of the research we've done, but hopefully I'll be echoing a lot of what you've heard in different viewpoints throughout the day. But really, you know, I think, you know, what I do is I've been studying the impact of media on kids for, you know, I hate to say it, almost 30 years now. And really, I think about it every day within the framework of health and development. And so I really look at the research and try to balance what we know and translate it to physicians and the tech industry and teachers. And so really what I want to do today is tell you about a study that we've done and tell you how I think it can be translated into best phone policy use. So this was a study. I've got some slides. If someone's directing it, can advance it. If not, you can look at it. Thank you. This is a study of an online study of about 1,500 young people throughout the country. These are kids that represent the entire country. We asked them, this is really the idea was to get what do young people who have policies in their school, what is their experience and what is their response to these policies? Now, these kids told us a number of things. First, they said they use their phones a lot. 63%, they said they use their phones a little too much or way too much. They say that more than half say that it's a major distraction at school, and that most of them, almost half actually, not quite most, report using tools as some sort of apps to control their own use. So this is a pretty common thing that we find when we talk to young people. They use apps on their phone to control their use. So we see this as they're positioned, they're ready to be open to policies that give them tools to control their own use. And in fact, they're very responsive to these kind of policies and gave positive reports of how it impacted their schools. 45% said, sorry, go on to the next slide. 45% said that these policies improved the learning environment. 35% said that it improved their own ability to pay attention. And while these aren't more than 50%, most of the kids chose that middle response of it didn't improve or worsen, but very few said that it worsened. So we're talking about a pretty big chunk that are saying these are having positive impact, these policies are having positive impact on their own abilities and on the learning environment of schools. So go ahead to the next slide. But there are some important caveats that have been mentioned throughout the day that as these policies are implemented need to be considered. And the first is safety, with 29% of young people saying that their school phone policy made them feel less safe. And while we often interpret that as meaning something about an emergency or a school shooter, what we found was that this number is higher for girls, 36%, and higher for non-binary or trans youth, 45%, which to me means it's not about emergency, it's about day-to-day living. There's something else that the young people are relying on their phone to make them feel safe. And as we implement these policies, we need to figure out what that means to each school and make sure that the school is providing that level of safety for young people as we are potentially removing an important lifeline for that safety. The second has to do with disciplinary actions. Half the kids in our survey said that their school uses detention or suspension to enforce these policies, which means that they're taking away access to school because of this. And that really the perceived severity of these policies impacts the student's relationship with their teachers. I teach the adolescent health course at the Harvard School of Public Health. What I've learned by teaching that is that the number one link to positive adolescent health is if they have an adult that they trust in the school that they're in. Everything else falls away if you have an adult you trust at the school you're in. So if we're implementing policies in a way that reduces that trust, we're doing a detriment to our students. So 49% of these kids that said that if they say the punishments are fair, that improves the relationships they have with their teachers. But if they say that the punishments are not fair, that worsens the relationship. So we have to have the buy-in from all the young people who were here and who left at exactly the right time for them to leave, right before the three of us spoke, right? Another way that students need to get that we can get the students buy-in is they need to be involved with the policy as they're being made. I don't think it's too late yet. Unfortunately, in our survey, over half, 58% of students had little to no role in the policy that was created at their school. But of those that were involved, 65% said that their school's policy was very or completely reasonable. So you want that buy-in, you have to get them involved from day one, from how is this being created? And when we asked them the question, have you noticed any additional impact of the school's device policy, positive or negative? One student wrote, many students want to drop dead at school now that their autonomy is taken away without even asking us first or considering our feelings and the consequences. So if we don't ask them first, this is how they're going to feel. So what makes a good policy? We actually found the policies, the details of the policies, the stricter policies did not outperform, according to the kids, less strict policies. So we asked them, because of this policy, are you able to focus? Or do you have a better sense of independence and these other outcomes? And policies where they maintain possession of their phone instead of having the phone locked away performed better. Never did a more strict policy perform better from the student perspective. Now, I won't go into detail about self-determination theory, but there are 3 needs that are really critical for adolescent development: autonomy, competence, and relatedness, being connected to other people. When you use a strict phone policy, bell to bell, lock your phone away, and you ask the kids, how does this impact your autonomy, and you compare that to other policies, their autonomy, they say their autonomy is less. Right? They feel like it's being imposed upon them. Unless, and this is from our research, this study, unless the school has clearly communicated the goals of the policy. And in fact, across all the different types of policy, if the school clearly communicates the goals of the policy to the students, it doesn't matter how strict it is. The kids said that this policy increased their sense of independence, it increased their ability to be competent, things like staying organized, and it increased their ability to be connected to other students. So the details of the policy were less important. What was more important was the school being clear and communicating the goals about that policy. I want to say one quick thing before I take away some last points. You know, we've heard throughout the day how BPS uses devices to schools. The kids are use device as part of their life in BPS. They use it to collaborate with other students, to connect with extracurricular activities, and to utilize school students. Where my son goes to school, if he wants to go to the library during study hall, he has to go online and sign up for that slot. So if he wants to connect with his coach, he has to connect with his coach to know where to go after school. It's the only time he uses his phone during school. He sneaks it, so he knows where to go after school. And today we talked a lot about, I heard a lot about these need to be siphoned, these are available to kids using their Chromebooks. But all of that needs to be conveyed to kids as this transitions from phones to other devices. And I thought this response to our question, have you noticed this additional impact of school devices? This young person really summed this up well. On the positive side, limiting devices during class helps students stay focused and reduces distraction, leading to a more engaged learning environment. On the negative side, some students feel disconnected from using digital tools that could enhance their learning, especially when it comes to researching or collaborating on projects during class time. And that balance, I think, is the challenge that BPS faces as they develop these policies. So to summarize all this, and so I go on to the next, sorry, I'm not doing a very good job of directing the slides, but go ahead to the next, there's a couple slides and one more. Perfect. So what do I think what does all this mean to making good phone policy? Well, one, you need to involve students in the development of these policies. This builds community, it increases buy-in, and it identifies legitimate concerns. What we don't, and I think there's an important caveat of this research, we don't know, could be these schools that involve students are just really good at communicating anyway, and it might be that's driving these good outcomes. But still, I think that involvement is pretty critical. 2, communicating clear reasons and goals. This clarifies expectations, removes ambiguity, and potentially improves student attitudes. And finally, this focus on fairness and reality, ensure that policies don't interfere with these student and child relationships or the student access to education. I think we set this up, then the details about how we implement it can be determined by what makes the most sense for the schools themselves. So thank you, and this is the picture. If you go to the last slide, you can see this is the picture that AI generates if you ask it to show you a lunchroom in a school that has a really good phone policy, which is no schools, but everybody's on a school. No phones, but everybody's on a phone. So thank you very much again. It's really been my pleasure to come in and be a part of this fantastic event today.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We appreciate all three of you being here and providing expertise on this issue. I'm now going to turn it over to my council colleagues, starting with the lead sponsors, and then in order of arrival for council questions. Councilor Weber, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So let's just say, Dr. Bickham, your son, let me guess, Xander.
That's a pretty good guess.
Yeah. He's at school with my daughter, and they've been for about 10 years together, maybe K0 at Mission Hill.
K1, yeah.
K1, okay.
K1.
But so, I think we're talking about this. I heard a lot about cigarettes, and you think of those companies sort of marketing to children, addictive. Can you just, I don't know if in your research you talk about what these companies are doing with social media and the impact it has on kids' brains or, their development?
Yeah, it's an incredibly complicated and important question. And I think that we know that the design of these platforms impact its use. We know that the companies make money by more use. And we know that attention drives that economy. We also know that there are people in these industries that, and these industries were designed really for adult use, and it wasn't until later where they were got much more concerned about what does it mean when young people are using these, and what does it drive then when we have young people who are logging on even when they when they say they're younger than what the actual intended age for this is. We at the Digital Wellness Lab work fairly closely with these companies with the goal of advising them on how to best redesign platforms to make them as healthy as possible. At times they're responsive and there's opportunities, and at times there's the best opportunity is not to go on those platforms. So I think that, I think that the combination of let's remove access in learning environments, and let's provide as much education as possible around how to use it in healthy ways for when they're not in those education environments is the best approach for all of us to take, so that the kids can be, so that when we're in the educational setting, it's optimal, and then they're informed and have the skills necessary to succeed when they're in an environment when they're using the platforms outside of the environment and outside of the educational environment.
Okay, and just to follow up to that, I think my parents, my grandparents were nervous about the impact of rock and roll and Elvis Presley, shaking his hips and impacts on the youth. How is this different? I mean, are we old now and we don't want this social media? I guess I'll start with you, Dr. Bickham, and then other panels.
Yeah.
Is this a different animal than
I think
something like
I think yes, it's a different animal. But I also think we do have to be aware of our own sort of bias of what we bring, of we have, every generation, I think, idolizes our own childhood as this being sort of the perfect way, of growing up. Like, we have come a long way for dealing with bullying. When I was a kid, we told kids, well, that was part of growing up. Deal with it, figure out what that means. Now we have policies around it and recognize it as an issue. So I think that there are concerns, like the difference to me is there's considerable research showing that when technology is designed to attract attention, it does it really effectively, and that it can maintain that attention for long periods of time. And that research is very well established. A lot of previous concerns were built on sort of value judgments or cultural judgments, and then we have a pretty strong evidence base for certain concerns around some of the mental health concerns and some of the kind of long sustained attention kind of concerns that aren't value judgments, that are more science-based. And so that, I think, differentiates a little bit of it from some of the prior, that were more value judgments than science-based.
Yeah.
If I may, you use the example of rock and roll. I always use the example of Saturday morning cartoons. And I was transfixed, and I was one of those kids who looked at the test panel or whatever it was called, waiting for the cartoons to start. But we didn't carry those around in our pockets. They weren't sucking our data out as we were watching. There are a number of ways that what's happening today is so much more harmful. It makes kids vulnerable. It's collecting just sensitive data on kids, and on for all of us, it's trying to attract our attention because there's a value. It's not just like we're becoming customers, but they're sucking at our data. They're monetizing it. In the case of kids, it's just supercharged because kids don't even understand the persuasive intent, so they're more likely to give up more information. They're looking for customers for life, so they can get more money for the data that they're sharing. And if you think about, I talked about some of the harms kids are exposed to today online: bullying, sexual predators, content that promotes suicide, self-harm, that kind of thing. But there's also just the fact that it's displacing activities that are crucial to your development. So if you're a child and you come home from school and you spend 8 hours a day staring at video games, that's 8 hours that you haven't spent just chatting with your siblings or going out and swinging at a baseball or chasing butterflies or reading a book or just sitting there and looking up at the ceiling, coming up with a way to imagine things. So everything now is just designed to hold your attention. And there's so much on social media that's also giving kids this skewed idea of what's important in life. You've got to be popular, you've got to impress people, you have to have so many likes, and you can't even look away. I was able to shut the cartoons off, whether it's Saturday morning or after school. But when a kid tries to shut down today, there are 6 different things saying, don't go away, watch this.
I ditto on everything said. Yes, we're getting older, but I don't think that has anything to do with this. I believe, and I know that these tech companies are designing these platforms. They are intentionally targeting people's psychological vulnerabilities, especially young people. They're designed to keep you plugged in. And I think it's a colossal, collective, societal failure that we have no guardrails. It's a lawless land. And, on the more serious side is I am part of a cell phone harms group of parents that is part of Fair Play. I have had my own experiences as a parent, very serious with my own teenager. And if you came to one of those meetings, you would see, the number of parents who have lost their children through these platforms, through suggestions, through bullying. These things keep you, addicted, keep you plugged in. There's a researcher, Jill Walsh at BU. She has a talk and talks about how the young people that she works with who are doing research started to started to research baking sites, and when the algorithm kept taking them to other places that were around like restrictive calorie, food and all of this. And so it's an algorithm that is, again, it's targeting your most vulnerable young people. And so we have to protect all of our young people, because losing just one young person is not acceptable. And I think it's unacceptable what these companies are doing. They're just exploiting our young people. They know that it's the same as tobacco. It's their future customer, and they have to keep them addicted. And I'll just say, I don't think all technology is bad. So I know I sound like I don't believe that. I think there are a lot of great things, and we've seen that throughout time. When we look at during the pandemic, people were connected. If you go to protests, you're able to hear. For LGBTQ plus youth, it is a place to connect. But I still think we need guardrails. We need parameters. And it's crazy to think we have had no legislation on this since like 1998. This is crazy. It is just lawless, and we need to protect our young people. I believe in the autonomy of young people and their voice, and I think it's so important. What David talked about is having young people be part of this, but at the same time, they are young, their brains are still developing, and they're not necessarily understanding how the algorithm works and where it's taking them to.
I think it is important to differentiate between communication technology that allows us to connect with people we know and algorithmic-driven social media content that's trying to sell us things. And so, like, if you think about group chat that your kids' friends connect with and plan and get together and really develop and it is a tool for maintaining friendships in a world really, that where schools are disconnected geographically from where they live. My kids' friends live all over the city, and being with them physically is fairly difficult to do. And so that maintaining a friendship outside of school through technology is really a critical kind of way to manage that relationship. And so I think that we need to think about that, that there's these ways that technology serves that kind of tool. And so I think that is where the education comes in with young people of like, this is, these are the different ways and this is the different kinds of things that it can do, and these are how you can make these decisions and what those means, and these are how you can make sure you're using it in a way that develops those friendships and that meets these needs, but that avoids some of these nefarious, and teach them what you're describing in these strategies that companies use, because that's what good media literacy does. It lets people behind the curtain of what that manipulation looks like.
Yeah, just one quick follow-up. Thank you. Dr. Pickham, or as I know he's Andrew's dad, are you, so just in terms of making the policy, I saw, you're talking about the difference between a policy that removes cell phones, all day, like in the Yonder pouches, I think that means, and having access to the phones during the day seem more successful. But are you saying if we had to choose between those two options, would you still prefer the Yonder with better communication and community buy-in, or are you advocating for the a better policy would be to have the phones on all day?
I think, and listening to today, I really think that different communities need different policies. Different schools need different policies. What I'm saying is, in a school that needs a Yonder House policy, what's critical is that communication and buy-in. And what we heard from English High was really the safety was addressed, the ability to contact parents was addressed. All of this, like how am I going to ask? What's the discipline that was addressed? Like, this is what's going to happen if we see you with your phone. You're not going to get suspended. You're going to lose your phone. It's going to go here. All of that was addressed, and so that meant that you could use this stricter policy without the kind of potential repercussion, potential backlash that you might experience. by feeling less autonomy or less independence that young people might feel. So that's kind of my I think my takeaway.
Okay.
I disagree with that because I think, especially in Boston, what I can foresee happening is there are going to be certain schools that are thought of as discipline, that need discipline and need to use the Yonder pouch. And we're going to come back down to the divide of the exam schools versus, open enrollment schools or whatever they call it now. And I think that it should be fair and square across the board. And if everyone should be following the same policies, same messaging, same consistency. Again, I think youth should have a say in like the implementation and the consequences, but it should be across the board. And the other pieces around the research shows that if you have, I don't know technically what it's called, but when you can access your phone in between classes and lunch, there's just research around your brain not being able to actually learn, because the time that you take away your phone, you can't have a task that is demanding on your brain and then go to your phone that is just as demanding, and it actually interferes with your learning. Your brain actually needs a break throughout the day to be able to get that learning to sink in, to go to your memory, et cetera. So I just feel really strongly that the policy should be bell to bell and should be across every school in the BPS district.
Well, I mean, I think what you're disagreeing with is, I guess what I'm saying, what I'm thinking about is, do we need to invest in Yonder pouches or not? And that there's reasonable reasons of, and I've seen this in other schools when we've gone into other schools, what the kids' response to this physical obstacle to their phone is, and what that meant to them, and this feeling of, and we've had responses of it, of what does it mean when I'm 18 and I have another adult chastising me about taking my property and putting it in a place where I can't access it. And what does that make me feel, and why is that a positive thing? Like, so I think I would be, I recognize this bell-to-bell policy, and I see that point, and I recognize your point, and I think it's reasonable. But I'm not quite convinced that every school needs to have Yonder pouches. So that I think might be where there might be some opportunity for more flexibility in how it's implemented.
Could I comment at the risk of you letting us have a little debate here, but I think it follows on these points. Yonder pouch is not the only way to go.
Exactly.
So you can have a locker, and you can have phones away in the locker.
Mm-hmm.
Also, if I'm reading the Massachusetts law correctly, I don't think it would be mandating pouches or lockers. It's conceivable. We recommend pouches or lockers, but I think the Massachusetts law would allow schools to permit that phones be locked and away, even in the school, in a student's backpack. Now, that's where the culture comes in. Mm-hmm. So if you are getting that buy-in and everyone is understanding, as the doctor explained, then hopefully it's not a constant battle of kids, reaching into their backpack. But I just wanted to say that Yonder is not the only way to do it.
Yeah.
Correct.
I think we agree more than we disagree.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can work it out on social media.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll have to sign up then.
Yeah, same.
Thank you, Councilor Weber. Councilor Mejia?
Thank you. Thank you. Anxiously waiting here for my turn. And so, Alex, you know me. I have no patience. You know how I am, right? So it's all good. So I think, and it's really important, and I'm so happy that we're having this conversation, because when I asked the question around the digital divide, and I really love the way Principal Murphy talked about what that looked like, because from a racial justice standpoint, right, it should not be different strokes for different folks, and people utilize that narrative as a way to scapegoat and as a way to say, yeah, our kids are going to be left behind. No, actually they're not. And to your point, Alex, right, it really provides the discipline that young people need to be able to focus on all of the technology apps and tools that they have in school. So I really do appreciate you underscoring it in your testimony here today, because I think that oftentimes that is the way that people kind of and I would have to agree, as someone who did not go to an exam school, and has been a strong advocate for our open enrollment schools, that whatever gets instituted should be across the board, regardless of the zip code that you live in, the economic status of the just class, all of those issues. I would feel really uncomfortable with instituting something that is only for a specific set of young people, because our kids already feel less than. And so anything that communicates to them that this is how we're going to do it here, but we're going to modify it over here, is to me a very bad message to send to our kids, especially in this moment in time when we already feel otherized in so many ways. And I have a chip on my shoulder around those issues, and so I want to make sure that we proceed with lots of caution in regards to the implementation of whatever policy we are experiencing or discussing now. Y'all reference rock and roll. I don't know about y'all. I remember Elvis Presley too. But I grew up in the MTV era, okay? I used to work at MTV. And I remember working at MTV at a time when hip hop and rap music was under attack. And I'm like producing television. I'm like, what are y'all talking about? Why y'all want to try to like literally shut down the channel because of rap music? And I feel like this moment is very different than that, because we're talking about how easy access it is for us to just check our phones, or for students to do that. When you were watching MTV, you had to wait to get home to watch the channel and all that. So this is a very different time that we're discussing right now, and I think it's really important as we continue to navigate these conversations to balance both young people not feeling like it's a punitive thing, and I think somebody said it here, I forget who it was, that is a gift. That is the best framing around how we're giving you back your time. And I think that giving young people back their time to be young people, to be focused, and to be in a space that recognizes the importance of relationship is a gift. And I think that will probably make our young people feel like this is something that is being done to them, with them, in terms of the communication rollout. So I think it's really important for us, and I don't have the screen or the people's names here, but Sanders' dad.
Yes, thank you. I'll go by that. It's David. Yeah, that's fine.
David,
it's fine.
I think David's point, there was a slide that you had shared earlier about kind of like the rollout and how we engage young people in this process, I think is going to be really important in terms of that, making young people understand that we're doing this with them, not to them.
Right, yeah.
And I think that for me feels like the right way for us to have the conversation as a district. The communication should be how we're going to engage youth in the rollout and what the accountability metrics are going to look like. I think that is kind of where we should be rowing towards, and I'm just curious about you all's input about rollout plan and strategy.
I would challenge maybe a little bit this idea of a gift, right? We're talking about adolescents whose primary developmental role is a sense of independence and autonomy. And so to be given something, as a gift is not the most determination kind of perspective. I think it's more like, you all know, if we give you phones in class, that's not a great place to be, right? Like, it's like bringing them in and saying, we all know as a community, you are part of this community. We all know the truth here, which is phones in classrooms not great, right? Like, this is just not a great, and so we as a school, our goal is for you all to learn, and you know this, like, you know the goal. You're smart, you're here to learn, and so it's not surprising for you to hear from us that this is what's going to happen, and we're going to work together And so what does this mean to you? What do you all think about how best to do this? And we're going to tell you what we think, and it shouldn't be surprising. We're your teachers. We're going to listen to you, and we're going to come together. We're not going to just do what you say, because that's not our role. We're the teachers. But we're going to listen and integrate what you say and what we say, and we're going to come up with something that works best for our community. And so to me, so it's not so much we're giving you something, it's not so much we're taking something, it's we're working together, and we're each taking our own roles, because we have, those roles are defined, and coming up with what's best for us as a school community. That to me is what's going to resonate.
Right. So this might not be a popular opinion.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that.
Yeah. No.
I actually prefer not to. I have always but I know a lot of parents, and I'm in several chats, but I try not to engage a lot, because what happens is that there is this driving force where parents want their children to have access to phones. And I can't talk about what life is like for other students, but in my household, I'm the one and only for my child. And so I do need a little bit of help with how my child is going to show up in school. And if there is a blanket, policy that will help ensure that my daughter is upholding the law in that school, that I need that extra reinforcement. So I think that there is a level of, I guess, a disconnect for me in terms of wanting to give young people the agency over their own lives, if you will, but also understanding that as adults, right, we need to also give ourselves the grace that we need and ask for the support that we need for our schools to step in and say, while we appreciate you participating in this process, at the end of the day, studies show X, Y, and Z, and we're going to get yonder, or we're going to get whatever it is, and we're going to hold down the law here. Because I think that at some point there has to be.
Absolutely, and I think that's where the communication side of it all comes in.
Right.
Like, you're just clear about all of this.
Yeah.
And that because that's, again, that's the role of the school, is to say, we're creating the best educational environment, we care about you, and that's why we're doing it this way. So, yeah, I think that.
I just want to say I agree with you, and I think it's a really great opportunity to work with families. So when I went through the slides of our survey, only 30% of families had any kind of caregiver rules and regs, and I think it's an opportunity, and we can't put everything on BPS, but it's a great place to start. And I don't know that every parent understands. I think I have learned a lot through this campaign that I did not know as a parent. I think I have better conversations with my teen now than I did, 4 or 5 years ago around social media, around cell phone use. I think we have an opportunity to build community norms. You see a lot of things like wait until 8th grade, things like that. I think in my child's circle, I'm the only parent who takes the phone at night. And if families, not all families know, the sleep deprivation is real. And if you look at a young person's brain who has not slept, it's the same as looking at a person who has who's depressed. And so we need to work with our families so they understand. So I think it's a great opportunity, and I also do think it's a gift. I think it's a gift, and maybe young people won't realize it right now. They'll realize it later, but I know families for sure will think that it is a gift, even though I think the emergency pieces that you're talking about, of course, I worry about that too as a parent, but I know that I can call the school and I can get a hold of someone. If I know that, then that's going to assuage my fears.
If I may build on what Alex is saying, I think it's a real opportunity to have resources for families. Make them understand that you're not alone. You're dealing with issues that every family is dealing with. The school and the school community want to be a resource, but we're also not saying Here are the tools you need. Now you go be the gatekeeper. You're in charge, because that's not fair to parents and caregivers. They have a lot on their plates. There is so much to do, to be juggling as a parent today, and there's so much that is luring kids that we can't put the onus on parents. But we can help them. We can help them to understand the manipulation of the internet. We can help them to understand the school wants to be a partner with you. So you've heard it how many times today? We want digital literacy. We want to know, the schools can provide that resource and work with the families together.
Yeah, and I know that Councilor Weber probably got more time because he was the lead sponsor, and I know that we have one more colleague that is waiting to ask questions. Then my request would be, if you want to move on to the next, that I get a second, that I can get my other questions. I just want to be respectful, but we didn't have a timer, so I'm not sure how much, what's going on here.
I've given the lead sponsor usually gets more time. We've put it for 4 or 5 minutes, but I think everyone's surpassed that 4 or 5 minute mark at this point. So given that it's 10 minutes till 2 and we have another hearing starting soon, that I'm also chairing. But yeah, I'll pass it to Council President Ruthie Lee-Jen, and then if you have a second round of questions, Councilor Ray, I'm happy to do that. Council President, you have the floor.
Thank you. I just want to thank everyone for testifying today. I think this is a really obviously important question. I want to thank you, Alex, for everything that you brought. I think your perspective is really helpful when you talk about what are the CEOs of these companies, what are they doing for their kids?
Exactly.
That's always that to me was just mic drop. Because if it's not good enough for their kids, for them to be on these devices that they've invented, why is it good for our kids? And so I do think that it's important for us to be putting this on. I'm going to give my time back because I know that there are interns and young kids, I think, who still want to testify, and we do have a hearing at 2, so I'm not going to ask any questions. I just wanted to tell you what a profound impact that had on me and about how we think about this issue. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Council President. Councilor Mejia?
Verbals that I was seeing was about me having, so I guess, I didn't know that we had people still waiting in the room to speak, so in the interest of being respectful of other people's time, I'll yield the rest, and I have your phone numbers. I can ask you questions outside of this chamber. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Mejia. Let's do this. So we're going to now go to the rest of our public testimony. I will dismiss this panel. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your time.
And for all the work that you do. And Alex, thank you for everything that you do on behalf of our youth and our Mission Hill youth. Great. So I have a long list of different people. So if you are here to testify, if you can just come down and stand in the back podium here. But I have Terrell Walker, Jason Lactis, Stephanie Agreyo, Julian Morales, Arosia Baker, Jillian Biswas, and all right. If you can just, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your patience. I know it's been a long hearing, so I really appreciate it. We really value our youth voices. So if you can just state your name and your affiliation, and you have 2 minutes to testify. Thank you.
My name is Jair. I have lived in Boston for almost my entire life. I'm excited to be here in front of Boston City Council. I stand here to discuss the fact on how social media can be a very addictive habit, and I feel like we could prevent the upcoming generation from falling into pitfalls of social media addiction. A lot of teens from 10 to 17 tend to get distracted by social media in school as well as out of school activities. I personally think social media is frying younger kids and teens' brains from doing the better things in life rather than just sitting around and just depending on their phones. According to Timothy Cook, Masters in Education, quote, the timing of this AI validation with young minds couldn't be worse. The prefrontal cortex, the brain region responsible for critical thinking emotion relegation, and complex problem solving. Doesn't fully develop until around age 25. This means middle schoolers and teenagers are particularly vulnerable to forming dependency on external validation systems, end quote. Youth are more expressionable than ever. We should come together and advocate for age verification and some of the apps to help protect our kids. I feel like there should be stronger security around age verification before downloading apps like Instagram, Facebook, and Snapchat, and more. The danger that arises from social media is the speed with which a teenager can become vulnerable to the adverse influences. Kids and teens tend to find whatever negative they see on social media or on the internet to be something that they would want to try at a young age. Kids like to be on their phones a lot during learning. Age limits can help protect this. Counselors for the City of Boston, I appreciate your ongoing efforts to engage with our uplift in our community in areas of social media. This issue has significant implications for our neighborhood, and I believe your leadership could make a meaningful difference in shaping a fair and just outcome for our community. Again, my name is Jair. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Jair. Appreciate you being here.
My name is Terrell, and I'm a resident of your city living in Dorchester. I'm a part of a group called Youth Leaders in Mental Health at Friends of the Children. We created programming around social media safety and habits, and I'm here to advocate for the banning of stealth marketing of products for youth and teens. Companies have been using stealth marketing, using influence to undercover promote their products to avoid advertising regulations. I'm worried about what the youth is exposed to. According to the New Jersey State Bar Foundation, kids are exposed to advertisements of vaping, unhealthy foods, and gambling. Although it is generally illegal for companies to advertise that to minors, companies use stealth marketing as a tactic to promote it in a subtle way. The National Finance Educators Council projects that companies spend approximately $2.9 billion a year for targeted ads for children, and this will increase to $21.1 billion by 2031. This is dangerous due to children not being able to distinguish advertisement from content or entertainment. By the time a young person turns 21, they will have seen more than 1 million advertisements through television and social media. I believe that the City Council should push lawmakers to stop stealth marketing tactics. Stealth marketing is a business practice that manipulates vulnerable people such as kids into buying misleading products. Advertising to children can influence and have negative impacts on their health and self-esteem. I appreciate you guys for your time and consideration and allowing me to speak. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate you being here.
Good afternoon, City Councilors. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today and for our students to also speak before you. My name is Stephanie Aguayo. I'm speaking on behalf of Sociedad Latina, where I have had the opportunity of directly partnering with BPS students over the past few years. I want to start off by saying that I support the implementation of a consistent bell-to-bell cell phone policy across BPS. I, as an adult, originally did not support, but it took me some time, and I fully stand here supporting that stance. Due to the extremely addictive properties of our technology, which are imposed by big tech companies, students need boundaries with their technology in order to focus and thrive academically. Having their school be a phone-free zone will not only allow them to focus academically, but to focus on building the in-person relationships that are extremely important with their peers. That being said, we also need to consider how we ensure our schools are actively fostering those opportunities for youth to use their downtime to connect with their peers. Our school's responsibility is to ensure that our youth are equipped with the social life skills needed when they graduate. Next, I want to share that it is incredibly important that our youth are included in the process of figuring out the implementation of a bell-to-bell policy. Our BPS students have already been a part of several, as you heard, cell phone policies, Yonder Pouch trial runs, and due to this, they have extremely valuable feedback on how to make an effective policy. Lastly, Sociedad Latina is recommending the formation of 2 advisory committees to help the district navigate the role of technology in education. The first committee's focus is to audit how technology is currently used in BPS. A district-wide audit will help to identify our current gaps and best practices to make technology more equitable and effective in our schools. The second committee's charge would be to develop education around digital readiness and crafting an AI policy in BPS. Students need clear instruction on how to be responsible digital citizens and think critically about AI. As AI becomes more embedded in education, we must ensure that our students and teachers have access to training and guidelines that promote ethical and safe practices. A thoughtful AI policy can help BPS to lead the way in setting standards for AI integration in public education. Together, these initiatives reflect a student-centered approach to technology in our schools. I urge BPS and our leaders to take steps to ensure that our digital tools are used in ways that enhance learning, protect students' mental health, and prepare them for the digital world that we're living in today. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, counselors. My name is Favorite Nda. I'm an intern under Counselor Worrell this summer, and I was sitting in this chamber and I was completely interested and just like, I was sort of blown away by the conversation, and I sort of wanted to add my piece. So I wrote a small little testimony. And so I first wanted to talk about the idea of discipline. I am a firm believer in discipline cannot be taught, but it must be learned, okay? So what does that mean? It comes from the self. You have to choose to be disciplined. And I think that it's going to be a difficult process, but I think that how do you learn to be disciplined? How do you stimulate a learning process without forcing someone into it? Well, I think what BPS is trying to do is obviously you can change their environment in a way. You can allow students to find new ways to adapt by taking away phones. BPS is trying to almost take what Counselor Fitzgerald proposed, which is the you gotta figure it out approach, you know what I mean? So, however, I feel like a change in environment like that, when you take away a resource that someone already has or already uses, that will obviously cause a distress or reaction. And you know, either students will react in a way where they're going to thrive from this, or students will ultimately find disadvantages within this system. So I guess what I'm proposing is there a different way, without changing the environment of students, is there a different way to institute that sort of change where students aren't constantly using this phone? Because we know that if students were not acting mean on social media, we're focused during class, we would not be in this chamber having this conversation. Well, I want to say that I did recently graduate from BLS, and so I am coming from an exam school, and we did have the same policy as BPS, obviously, which is the no phone policy. And it wasn't a extreme or huge issue in BLS in the first place, the no phone. You know, we'd have phone issues, they take away our phones, but it wasn't like a major issue that we had to continuously keep talking about. And so why is it different in BLS? Well, I think for one reason, it's about creating a strong community. Within BLS, when I first got there, it just felt like a consensus that, you know, everybody was learning, everybody was striving to do better, and everybody was trying to, you know, I guess just be better in a way. And so I guess instead of changing our environment, I think BLS functions on an unspoken code or an honor code, which is this sort of energy that thrives throughout the school, and it's almost contagious. And I think the question is, you know, how do you do that? How do you add that into a school, right? Well, it first starts with the teachers, making sure your teachers are being there for students and are creating that community for students. Then it's adapting lessons that are personalized to students, making it interesting. Learning must be interesting. It shouldn't feel like I'm just preparing for a 9-to-5 job. Why wouldn't I want to use my phone then? And I think it's also having resources that allow students not to worry about what's going on outside of that. So I obviously believe that building community, you know, is obviously way harder said than done, you know. I think that's why we're having this conversation in the first place, because we have a large issue, and I think that, you know, restricting resources is the shortcut, or to some people it's just common sense, you know, make a regulation and people will follow that regulation. So I want to urge that maybe instead of cutting corners, let's strengthen the society that we already have and create a trusting community where the lack of need for phones in school is not just a law, but it's just truth and consensus. It just makes sense to have that there. And so, like I said before, it's done by the teachers that we have, the community that those teachers and adults create in their environment. It's done by the lessons that are personalized to students, not just preparing them for 9 to 5s, but to create actual future and actual change. And it's about having resources for all students that allow them not to worry about what's going inside. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and congratulations on your recent graduation from BLS. Awesome.
I'll keep it short. Buenas tardes, members of the Boston City Council. Thank you all, and I think really I appreciate you letting our students speak here today. My name is Julia Morales, and I'm here from Sociedad Latina as the Youth Development Specialist for the Youth Community Organizing Program. You heard from a lot of the youth in this program today. We are here to discuss one of our major campaigns in the past year, and one of the most important conversations we are actively having today in society, which is, of course, teens and technology. But obviously, social media is not our only concern. AI applications like ChatGPT and OpenAI have a user base that is predominantly students. And it's something that needs to be considered when discussing the role of tech in our schools. As this technology continues to rapidly develop, we need to ensure that our youth are not left behind by mandating education about AI, what it really is, including not just the pros, but also the cons that sneak up on us. That's why we're recommending the development of an AI certification program for all youth, 14 plus, high schoolers, to help them make informed decisions about how they use AI in their academic lives. AI is currently still a large unknown for many, and it's often misused in ways that are detrimental to critical thinking, an important part of youth development that occurs mostly during their teen years. And Sociedad Latina is big on parent involvement. Parents, guardians, teachers, really any adults that interact with youth need to have more than a base knowledge of AI in order to properly guide youth toward their online encounters with it. Our recommendation is that BPS begins offering classes for parents and caregivers in the Parent University on what AI is, the benefits and dangers, and how to support their youth on making safe, responsible decisions online. We can't wait until we become used to AI. We learn it slowly, especially since we're already playing catch up to these tech companies and their designs for our future. Sociedad Youth have been campaigning at school committee meetings for the inclusion of AI education, along with K-12 digital citizenship courses since last year. It's past time to develop the curriculum our kids need, and we're going to keep doing it until we have it. Thank you so much for your time. Have a great day.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Do we have anyone else who wants to testify? Okay. Do you want to read that into it? Or do you want to? Okay, Councilor Weber is going to now read a letter that we received that will now be read into the record. Councilor Weber, you have the floor.
Okay. Is central staff cutting us off? Okay, just quickly, as fast as I can, I'll read this letter. Dear Chairperson and members of the Council, thank you for the opportunity to send you testimony. My name is Dr. Gillian Biswas, and I am the president of the Massachusetts Psychiatric Society. Our members are physicians specializing in the diagnosis, treatment, and prevention of mental illness, as well as the promotion of mental health and well-being, and we are deeply concerned about the escalating youth mental health crisis. The Massachusetts Psychiatric Society supports implementing personal smartphone restrictions in schools. Research indicates that unregulated smartphone use during the school day distracts students from academic time, contributes to cyberbullying, exposes kids to inappropriate content, and reduces opportunities for healthy in-person social interaction and physical activity, all of which are critical to healthy adolescent development. Research consistently shows that problematic smartphone use in youth is associated with increased rates of depression, anxiety, poor sleep quality, stress, and diminished academic performance. A 2019 meta-analysis of over 41,000 young people found that problematic use was linked to more than threefold higher odds of depression and anxiety, and more than double the odds of poor sleep. The U.S. Surgeon General and the American Academy of Pediatrics have issued urgent advisories citing these risks and local surveys, such as Sociedad Latina's work with Tufts University, indicate that many Boston students are spending 6 or more hours per day on their phones, often during school hours. Excessive in-school smartphone use not only impacts academics, it amplifies exposure to cyberbullying and online harassment, disrupts peer relationships, and can displace engagement in physical activities, learning, and face-to-face socialization, all of which are protective factors for mental health. We also recognize the importance of clear, practical guidance for implementation. The Massachusetts Attorney General's Office Cell Phone Policy Toolkit, built with support from the Shaw Foundation and many others, could be a valuable starting point for school leaders. It offers strategies for reducing distractions, supporting teacher enforcement, and ensuring equity in how policies are applied. These tools should be leveraged by Boston Public Schools to implement consistent, effective cell phone restrictions district-wide. We acknowledge that some students may need access to communication for emergencies or for health reasons. This can be addressed by providing flip phone and email stations or designating areas where students can make calls when necessary, coupled with digital literacy and citizenship curricula to prepare them for safe, responsible technology use outside of school hours. In closing, the Massachusetts Psychiatric Society supports the Boston City Council taking decisive action by adopting a smartphone restriction policy across all Boston public schools. Doing so will help safeguard student mental health, foster engagement in learning, and create a school environment where children can be fully present, connected to one another, and be more supported in their growth. Thank you for your attention and your commitment to the well-being of Boston's young people. Dr. Jillian Biswas, President, Massachusetts Psychiatric Society. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Weber. I've now been informed by Central staff that we have maybe a few people on Zoom who are looking to testify. If we can just bring those up for those testifying on Zoom, please accept the message asking you to be promoted to panelists when it appears. All right. I think it's been a long hearing, so sounds good. So we do not have any more public testimony. So with that, I appreciate all of our panelists today. I appreciate all of our guests. I particularly appreciate all the youth who were here earlier today and appreciate the conversation. Thank you, everyone. This hearing on docket number 0905 is adjourned.